Chapter 2254. Dongwang Empire. Lin Feng walked in the city of the empire, savoring the customs here. Although he didn't stay in Dongwang Empire for long, it was his starting point, a turning point. He joined the Hundred Saints Martial Temple and met Prince Yushu, Qin Qing and other close friends. Then he entered the secret realm of ancient worlds, went deep into the universe's super black hole, the secret realm of death, and went to the origin enlightened continent, the god-fallen world, and found a great opportunity like a wandering planet. It could be said that without Dongwang Empire, he wouldn't be who he was now. Lin Feng was very nostalgic and valued relationship. Those who had treated him kindly and those who had done him a favor, he would always remember them in his heart and never forget them. After returning to Dongwang Empire, he didn't immediately return to the Milky Way territory. Instead, he visited several old friends first. After all, he didn't know when they would meet again after this trip. Robbery! Someone is robbing. There was a commotion on the street in the distance, and a woman shouted in anger. The crowd on the street looked indifferent and watched the robber fly away. No one stopped him. The woman was so anxious that tears welled up in her eyes. She was like an ant on a hot pan. She chased after the robber but couldn't do anything. Lin Feng frowned slightly. His eyes flickered, and with just a thought, the robber's eyes widened in shock. With a plop, he fell onto the street, his soul scattered. He died tragically on the spot. The surroundings were filled with sighs, and the crowd was in an uproar. Thank you. Thank you for your help, benefactor. The woman held the stolen treasure tightly in her arms and looked around. She bowed and bowed repeatedly as tears streamed down her face. She was unable to contain her joy. The surrounding people were all pointing and talking at the same time. When did the security of Dongwang Empire become so bad? Lin Feng's aura covered the whole city, so he could see it clearly. As long as he wanted, the robber would die no matter how far he ran. But that was not the point. The most important thing was the invisible atmosphere that pervaded the city. It was lifeless and lifeless. Everyone buried their heads in protecting themselves and did not care about the life or death of others. They did not care about what was happening in the outside world. Although the entire city was still operating, it was like a dead city. The city guards were in groups of 2s and 3s. At this moment, they were drinking wantonly in a restaurant, completely ignoring their duties. How did the Dongwang Empire become like this? Lin Feng sighed. He might not have been able to sense it from the outside, but once he entered the city and experienced the emotions of the people, he would be able to sense it clearly. Because the end of the Milky Way is near, and everyone will die along with the Milky Way super black hole. Lin Feng also knew the general reason. There was nothing more sorrowful than a dead heart. Since he knew that there was no hope of survival, he would live one day at a time. How could he have the leisure to do anything else? Everyone was waiting for death. But even the city guards are like this. This is somewhat abnormal. Monarch Qin Wushou shouldn't be doing nothing. Could it be that he has already given up and silently accepted everything? Lin Feng really couldn't understand. From what he knew, Qin Wushou wasn't such a person. It seems that a lot of things have happened while I was gone. Lin Feng thought to himself. His eyes suddenly brightened as he looked towards the east of the city. His figure disappeared in a flash. His 3 big men in black armor, with a crown-like mountain crest on their chests, were laughing wantonly with sharp blades in their hands, looting and slaughtering a large manor. Help! Help me, I don't want to die! Ah! Cries and cries for help came one after another. The fire spread throughout the manor, and the unbridled laughter of the 3 burly men could be heard amidst the fire. Blood flowed all over the ground, and the bodies of the servants, and maids were everywhere in the manor. The strength of the 3 big men was not strong. At this time, there were many people watching outside the manor, and many of them were stronger than them. However, they stayed out of it and helped without the slightest sense of chivalry. Robbery is a small matter. But murder, arson, rape, and plunder, how can they be ignored when they have gone too far? Lin Feng found it hard to believe. Experts with a little sense of justice would help when they saw all this. No matter what the situation was now, at least they should have a human heart. There was no reason for them to be like walking corpses and not be able to protect themselves. After all, they were fully capable of stopping it. Brother, don't worry. It's useless to be angry, a young warrior beside Lin Feng said faintly. Oh. Lin Feng was puzzled. This is a subordinate sect of the Virtual God Palace, the Gangqi Gang, the young warrior said. The Virtual God Palace? Lin Feng thought for a while and shook his head. I only know of the 100 Saints Martial Hall, the Myriad Demons Palace, the Demon God Palace, Dongwang Valley, and the Virtual God Palace. I have never heard of them. The young warrior was stunned. He looked up and down at Lin Feng. Brother, did you just come out of seclusion? Why do you say so? Lin Feng said. The young warrior glanced at him. These are the sects and forces of the Dongwang Empire 10,000 years ago. Now, apart from the 100 Saints Martial Hall, the Myriad Demons Palace and the Demon God Palace have long been weakened, and the Dongwang Valley has been wiped out. Lin Feng was slightly stunned. He had not been away for long. These sects and forces had a long history. How could they have changed so much? Back in the Dongwang Empire, the 100 Saints Martial Hall stood out and produced many strong cultivators. The Myriad Demons Palace, the Demon God Palace, and the Dongwang Valley were second only to the 100 Saints Martial Hall. They were also ambitious. Now they were all weak? Also, where did this Virtual God Palace come from? Even its vassal gangs were so unscrupulous, openly raping and looting in the cities of the Dongwang Empire, committing all kinds of crimes. Brother, you don't know. The Virtual God Palace was built by the strongest cultivator in the Milky Way, Lord Su Ming. It was founded less than 10,000 years ago, but it has already spread across the 7 empires and countless subordinate sections. Not to mention the various forces, even the empires have to act according to his wishes. If you make Lord Su Ming unhappy, the entire empire will be wiped out. Su Ming. The strongest Saint King, Su Ming. Lin Feng was shocked. He was the strongest cultivator ranked first on the Milky Way Sage King list. He had not seen him in the secret territory of the ancient Thousand World. He was independent and had a strange temper. He had killed more than 10 Saint Kings on the Milky Way Sage King list and was in the limelight for a time. But at that time, he was alone and did not belong to any forces. He did not expect that he would change so much. No. No. Save me. In the manor, a woman's frightened and struggling voice was heard. It was filled with fear and panic. The voices of 3 burly men were heard. They laughed wantonly and completely ignored all rules. Occasionally, a few of the spectating experts would reveal looks of pity and grief, but they would soon disappear. They did not dare to offend the Virtual God Palace. Even the short-haired young man beside Lin Feng frowned. He was angry but did not dare to say anything. Sigh. Lin Feng sighed softly and shook his head. He walked into the manor alone. Every step he took was like teleportation. He was clearly still some distance away from the manor, but he entered it in 2 or 3 steps. What a marvelous skill! The onlookers were stunned. Chapter 2255. Don't be impulsive. The short-haired young man reacted in shock and shouted. Suddenly, the man's voice in the manor stopped, and a woman's sobbing voice could be heard. Thank you, young master. Thank you for saving us. The faces of the surrounding experts alternated between green and white as they shook their heads. The 3 men were not strong and they could kill them. But what would happen after they killed them? They were the affiliated gangs of the Virtual God Palace, the most powerful force in the entire Milky Way. With a group of saints and saint rulers gathered together, they were fearless. Anyone who offended them would only die. It was as if they could see the end of the black-clothed youth. He would die without a burial ground, and he would die a miserable death. Someone must have tipped them off. Yes, the omnipotent gang is not to be trifled with. This young man is in trouble. Senseless sympathy and ignorant chivalry. It feels good to be a hero, but you don't think about the consequences. Is it worth it to give up your life for someone you don't even know? The crowd snorted. It's worth it. A voice suddenly sounded. Lin Feng stepped out of the manor, and in a split second, it was as if a strong wind had blown past, extinguishing the raging fire. His gaze swept across the crowd, and Lin Feng said indifferently, "A cultivator should have a benevolent heart. Why don't you do what you can? You only care about protecting yourself. The world is really degenerating." Lin Feng sighed. He would not ask everyone to be like him, but this indifference made him very uncomfortable. A person who didn't even have the most basic emotions was no different from a beast. The Dongwang Empire had changed too much. The decline of the Milky Way super black hole was about to be destroyed, and everything changed. "Go, brother," the young warrior who was originally beside Lin Feng advised. "I know you mean well, but, Sai, we can't afford to offend the omnipotent gang. Their leader, Chi Batian, is close to the saint level and is highly valued by the virtual god palace. They have many eyes and ears here. Just now, a few flatterers went to tip them off. Soon, many experts from the gang will come. But even if you leave now, Sai, it's useless. Now, the entire Milky Way is under the watch of the virtual god palace. It's useless even if you escape to the ends of the earth." The young warrior looked dejected. He also felt sorry for Lin Feng. He had a sincere heart, but the situation was not in his favor. The current situation was not something he could change. There were countless bloody examples of what the price of standing up for others. Lin Feng nodded. At this moment, he also understood why the group of experts were so cowardly. The fickleness of human nature was because the virtual god palace's power was too great, suppressing the other experts to the point that they couldn't breathe. There was simply no room for resistance. Back then, there were many experts from the 7 empires. Although Su Qi was the top expert on the Milky Way King Sage list, there were also many experts who were close to him. For example, Guangwu Saint King and Wu God had all reached the limit. However, when they explored the secret realm of death, they were all trapped. Now that the Milky Way super black hole is about to die, the shackles of the supreme rules have been broken. I think Su Qi must have advanced to a higher level and surpassed the immortal chaos hole to become the master of the dark zone. A difference of 1 level was enough to crush them. Su Qi was already the top expert in the Milky Way. Now that he had advanced to a higher level, he was naturally invincible. Moreover, because the supreme rules were broken, Su Qi was even more fearless. His deeply hidden ambition finally exploded. Look, he's still not leaving. Where can he go? The Dongwang Empire is so big that the virtual god palace has eyes everywhere. He can run, but the temple can't. He's dead. Ha, who asked him to stand up for others? He wants to be a hero and shamelessly taught us a lesson. He really thinks he's a big shot. I don't know where this ignorant kid came from. He doesn't know the rules at all. That's right. You should act according to your ability. If you don't have the strength, you're just looking for death. Sarcasm was endless. Everyone sneered at Lin Feng's behavior. Many were waiting to see how Lin Feng would die. A young man who was still wet behind the ears dared to provoke the virtual god palace. He must have eaten a bear's heart and a leopard's guts. Don't care about these rumors. Brother, let's go. The short-haired young man was even more anxious than Lin Feng. He gritted his teeth and said, "If we leave now, at least we have a chance to live. If we don't leave, whoosh." The short-haired young man's face suddenly changed and turned pale. The sound of the air breaking was heard one after another. Countless experts with the same logo as the 3 burly men on their chests rushed over from all directions. The leader had a strong back and a bare waist. His eyes were like a lion's. He held his head high and held a giant axe in his hand. He looked majestic. Chi Batian. Oh my God, Chi Batian gang leader is here in person, using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. Chi Batian gang needs to establish its prestige and frighten them to get back its face. Chi Batian gang leader's strength is extremely close to the Saint Plane. It is rumored that he is a preparatory disciple of the virtual God Palace. He is considered a powerful expert in the entire Dongwang Empire. It seems that this time, he really needs to kill the chicken to warn the monkey. Serves him right. He is tired of living. Why did he have to provoke the virtual God Palace? He has to bear the consequences. I hope he doesn't implicate us. Clang. The giant axe fell. Chi Batian was wearing a majestic armor. The terrifying sound of the air breaking was enough to make children cry. The sharp wind pressure was like a giant python spitting out its tongue. It directly blasted down beside Lin Feng, leaving a deep mark. Gang leader! Gang leader! Gang leader! The experts of the Chi Batian gang raised their arms and cheered. Chi Batian's powerful aura spread out, causing the surrounding ground to rumble and shake. The surrounding experts felt as if they were suffocating, and their faces were ghastly pale. They swiftly raised their axes high up, and their elite gazes carried cold, killing intent as they stared straight at Lin Feng. State your name. Chi Batian looked at Lin Feng with disdain, completely disdainful of him. With the virtual God Palace behind him, there were few people in the entire Dongwang Empire who could make him afraid, let alone a little kid. His aura was ordinary. He was no match for him at all. Today, he would establish his prestige in front of everyone and see who would dare to challenge the authority of the Chi Batian gang in the future. Pity, ridicule, disdain, and sneer. Everyone looked at Lin Feng as if they were looking at a desperate prey. The experts of the Chi Batian gang smiled, as if they were teasing an ant. Lin Feng. The two words were said lightly. The onlookers were instantly stunned. They saw a terrifying aura descend like the might of heaven. It was thousands of times stronger than Chi Batian's aura. The terrifying power descended as if it was the wrath of heaven. A giant black dragon roared and rose. Swish! It directly swallowed Chi Batian. In the next moment the space suddenly changed. Countless space blades appeared out of thin air, accompanied by the roar of the giant black dragon. It was hair-raising. All the experts of the Chi Batian gang were killed instantly. There was a dead silence. Chapter 2256. Those who are unjust are doomed to destruction. The Chi gang is like that, and so is the virtual God Palace. His voice reverberated in the surroundings, echoing like the judgment of the heavens. It took a while for the martial artists, who were completely shocked, to wake up. Looking at the scene in front of them, they were all dumbfounded and shocked. Dead. Dozens of experts from the Chi gang were all dead. Every one of them, even their wounds, were the same. They were all beheaded. The most powerful leader, Chi Batian, had died the most miserable death. It was as if he had been eaten by a black dragon. Not even his bones were left, and his soul had been scattered. What just happened? Everyone felt strangely suffocated. They only felt the space change in an instant. The young man in black seemed to have done nothing, but the domineering Chi gang had been completely annihilated. It was as if a group of ants had been trampled to death by a giant. They were too weak. Great Tao is simple. So powerful. The short-haired young man muttered to himself. He was still immersed in the power that was as strong as the heavens. Beside Lin Feng, he was the one who had the deepest understanding of that power. The extremely powerful attack had rendered the experts of the Chi gang, who had dominated the Dongwang Empire, completely helpless. Who is he? The short-haired young man was extremely shocked. This question also echoed in the hearts of every martial artist present. He was extremely powerful and so young. To be able to kill Chi Batian, whose strength was comparable to a saint, he was at least a saint king. However, in the entire Milky Way, was there such an expert? What shocked everyone the most was what he said before he left. The Qi Gang was just the beginning. His goal was the most powerful force in the entire Milky Way, the virtual God Palace. Gulp. Everyone swallowed their saliva. They wanted to say that he was spouting nonsense, but they couldn't bring themselves to say it. An expert who was at least a Saint King was not someone they could comment on. Moreover, the horrifying scene from before was still vivid in their minds. It was like a nightmare that could not be erased. Maybe he really had the strength? Destroy the virtual God Palace? Did he really have the strength? The martial artist's knowledge was too shallow. The current Lin Feng was beyond their imagination. Even Su Ming, who had broken through to the Dark Domain Master Realm and was invincible in the Milky Way, couldn't withstand a single blow from Lin Feng, let alone Qi Batian. In Origin Awakened Continent, every Destiny Tribe expert was much stronger than Su Qi, and the result? His soul had long since dispersed, and he was deader than dead. To Lin Feng, Su Ling and the empty God Palace were like a pile of sand blocking his path. He couldn't even trip them up. A casual kick or blow could make them disappear. I wonder how Prince Yushu is doing now. How is Monarch Qin Wushuang? Lin Feng had a bad premonition. After his true dragon avatar returned to the Milky Way territory, he guarded the Huaxia lineage on Earth and cultivated his soul in his teacher's true dragon black domain. The Milky Way territory was impregnable, unique and extraordinary in the Black Wolf Gold Empire. If his original body hadn't returned to the Milky Way, he wouldn't have known so many things had happened. However, looking at the current situation, although it was a bit troublesome, it wasn't a big deal. Otherwise, his junior brother Li Poji would have returned to the Milky Way territory long ago to inform him. After killing the Mang Qi gang, Lin Feng immediately teleported to the 100 Saints Martial Temple. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In the original universe, although speed couldn't exceed the speed of light, teleportation wasn't limited. Lin Feng could easily teleport more than 10 light-years away. Although the space energy in the Milky Way was thin now, Lin Feng had the black vortex and merged with a wandering planet, so the space energy was endless. His speed was faster than a spaceship in the dark matter space. However, it was easy to get lost in the vast universe. Fortunately, he was in the Donghuang Empire. Lin Feng had stayed there for a while and was familiar with the place. He quickly returned to the 100 Saints Martial Temple. I'm back. Lin Feng returned to the 100 Saints Martial Temple, the place where he grew up. Earth was a starting point, and the 100 Saints Martial Temple was another. He grew up in the 100 Saints Martial Temple and gained a foothold in the Milky Way. However, the 100 Saints Martial Temple today was different from before. It's less domineering. It doesn't have the glory and will of the past. Is it because of the pressure of the virtual God Palace that they can't breathe? Lin Feng strolled in the 100 Saints Martial Temple. Returning to the martial arts field, the Inheritance Hall, and the 100 Saints statue, the past flashed in his eyes. The elites and geniuses of the 100 Saints Martial Temple today were no longer the same as before. The environment changed everything. The 100 Saints Martial Temple was the most powerful force in the Donghuang Empire, shouldering the responsibility of guarding the glory of the Donghuang Empire. Its wealth and treasures were unmatched by other forces. The 100 Saints Martial Temple had been around for as long as the Donghuang Empire was born. It could be said that the 100 Saints Martial Temple was the backbone of the Donghuang Empire. But now its backbone had been crushed. The strength of the virtual God Palace had caused the 100 Saints Martial Temple to lose its former status. Moreover, without the strongest Saint King of the Donghuang Empire, the Grand Master of the Temple, the 100 Saints Martial Temple's combat power had been greatly affected. Oh! Suddenly, Lin Feng sensed two familiar auras and revealed a joyful expression. Whoosh! His figure flashed and disappeared instantly. In the solemn and majestic hall, there were many towering stone statues. Huge stone pillars supported the entire hall like the body of a giant. At this time, a man and a woman were talking in detail. "Junior brother, are you sure you want to do this?" Lu Qin's curved eyebrows slightly knitted together. She was very worried. "My position won't change." Li Poji smiled. "But the elders have made it clear. If you do this, they will be very disappointed. I'm afraid you won't be able to take over the position of the Grand Master of the temple." Lu Qin looked at Li Poji worriedly. When junior brother Lin Feng brought him here, his strength was weak and his talent was far inferior to junior brother Lin Feng's. He could barely become a first-class genius. Unexpectedly, as the progress of the other top-grade geniuses became slower and slower, Li Poji's progress became faster and faster. Not only did he break through to the Saint realm, but he also became a Saint King 100 years ago. "Senior sister, you should know that I don't care about those titles." Li Poji smiled. "You and junior brother Lin Feng are really carved from the same mold." Lu Qin slightly rebuked and rolled her eyes. Li Poji smiled. "Senior brother is much more powerful than me. When he went into the secret realm of death, he was already a Saint King. Unlike me, who cultivated slowly and only reached the Saint King realm now." Lu Qin glared at Li Poji. "So you're saying that my talent is terrible?" "I wouldn't dare," Li Poji said. His senior sister was very shrewd. He let out a sigh of relief. In fact, if senior brother were here, he would definitely do the same. There are things that warriors should do and shouldn't do. "Well said, junior brother. How have you been?" A refreshing laughter resounded in the hall. Under the surprised gazes of Li Poji and Lu Qin, Lin Feng slowly stepped into the hall. Chapter 2257. Junior brother. Senior brother. Lu Qin and Li Poji shouted in surprise and went up to greet him. There was a deep friendship between them, so they were naturally overjoyed to meet again after a long separation. Lin Feng was also very happy after being separated for 10,000 years, especially since he and Li Poji were like brothers who had fought side by side on Earth. "Where have you been all these years, brother Lin?" Li Poji laughed heartily as he punched Lin Feng in the chest. "Yes, junior brother. You and Lord Huoshen never came back after entering the secret realm of death. We were worried sick." Lu Qin's eyes were filled with tears as she bit her lips. She didn't look like her usual self at all. "It's a long story." Lin Feng smiled. It was indeed a long story. If they hadn't entered the secret realm of death, so many things wouldn't have happened. His strength had improved by leaps and bounds in the past 10,000 years. The strength of the real dragon avatar that he had left in the Milky Way territory was as different as heaven and earth. The greater the risk, the greater the reward. "Where's the Grand Hall Master?" "Junior Marshal brother, has the Grand Hall Master returned?" Lu Qin looked around anxiously. "Huoshen." He was ranked third on the Milky Way Sage King list, and was known as the soul of the 100 Saints Marshal Hall. "No, we separated after entering the secret realm of death, and went our separate ways. I haven't seen the Grand Hall Master." Lin Feng's words made Lu Qin's face turn gloomy. She lowered her head and looked disappointed. "Don't worry. Heaven helps the worthy." Lin Feng comforted his senior sister Lu Qin. Lu Qin sighed. "Junior brother, you don't know. Too many things have happened in the past 10,000 years after you left. The monarch passed away, the princes fought for the throne, the 100 Saints Marshal Hall was leaderless, and the virtual God Palace rose. Everything needed the Grand Hall Master to decide and turn the tide." "Qin Wushou was dead?" Lin Feng had just heard the news and sighed. However, Qin Wushou was already nearing the end of his life, so it was normal for him to die. Back then, he had appointed 2 crown princes, one was the Great Prince, and the other was Prince Yushu. His sudden death must have caused the Empire to be at a loss as to what to do. That's a small matter. What's more important is that the Void God Palace runs amok. Li Poji looked serious. "Su Ming's strength has surpassed the Saint King realm. The virtual God Palace's influence almost covers the entire Milky Way. 3 of the martial arts hall's remaining Saint King experts were killed by him. This hatred is absolutely irreconcilable. Lipoji's indignation came from the bottom of his heart. After 10,000 years of bitter cultivation, he and Lin Feng had long regarded the 100 Saints' martial palace as their home. Now that his family had been killed, he was naturally incomparably furious. However, with his strength, he was still unable to take revenge. However, this was not a reason to yield. The empty God Palace has already sent down a message, ordering the vassals of the 100 Saints' martial hall to submit. Otherwise they will be killed without mercy. Lipoji's voice was low, hiding his anger. Most of the elders have already reached a consensus. Ready to agree? Lin Feng smiled faintly. Lipoji nodded. The empty God Palace used both kindness and power. On one hand, they threatened the 100 Saints' martial hall. On the other hand, they bribed a few elders and set a rule. As long as the 100 Saints' martial hall is willing to submit, everything will go on as usual. Smart, Lin Feng said. If they push too hard, with the reputation and dignity of the 100 Saints' martial hall, they would definitely fight to the death. Lipoji sneered and said, in the words of the Chinese, it's just a pie in the sky. It looks good and the 100 Saints' martial hall will benefit from it. However, it's not that easy. The empty God Palace just can't swallow it all at once. They want to nibble it away step by step. Actually, the elders also know, Lu Qin said hesitantly. Lin Feng said, but they have no choice. They can only believe and hold on to a glimmer of hope. Loud noises came from the front as the great elder's voice resounded throughout the majestic palace. Elders, palace masters, and saints all gathered. This was a high-level meeting of the 100 Saints' martial palace, and all experts above the saint realm were allowed to participate. Lin Feng was already a saint when he entered the secret realm of death. Although he hadn't appeared for 10,000 years, it was normal for experts at his level to cultivate in seclusion for 10,000 years. There were even some who cultivated in seclusion for 100,000 years. Since he was here, Lin Feng naturally participated in the meeting with Lipoji and Lu Qin. After all, he was also a member of the 100 Saints' martial hall. However, the result of the meeting didn't matter to Lin Feng. He already had a plan in mind. He wouldn't waste time on other things. Empty God Palace was nothing to him. Today, we will discuss the final decision of the 100 Saints' martial hall. The first elder's voice sounded. It was unshakable. All the experts of the 100 Saints' martial hall who had reached the Saint King level would automatically be promoted to the elder level. When Lin Feng left, the 100 Saints' martial hall had 18 Saint Kings, including the hall master Huashun. But now there were only 11 left. I believe everyone has reached a consensus in the previous 2 meetings. The first elder glanced at the group of elders. The hall masters and other saints were outside the circle of the meeting. There was a gap between their strength and the status of the elders. We've discussed everything that needs to be discussed. Let's vote. A one-eyed elder said coldly. His eyes were filled with arrogance. He raised his head slightly. He was indeed someone not to be trifled with. The first elder looked over and frowned. The situation has changed. Why bother? You have your choice. I have my pride and dignity. The one-eyed elder was obviously not convinced by the first elder. He said proudly, if the hall master Huashun is still here and sees us as cowards, humph. All the elders and hall masters were silent. Indeed, if the hall master was still here, how could the 100 Saints' martial hall be bullied? Where there's life, there's hope. The first elder's face was solemn. The situation in the Milky Way is set. The path of the 100 Saints' martial hall is sealed. We can't be willful anymore. If we persist, we will only destroy the hundreds of millions of years of the 100 Saints' martial hall's foundation. The one-eyed elder snorted. Isn't it the same as destroying our foundation if we submit? Even if we can escape in the future, it will leave a permanent stain on our reputation. Instead of living an ignoble existence, I'd rather fight to the death and destroy everything. Why bother? Sigh. The first elder shook his head and closed his eyes. He looked much older. Cut the crap. Let's follow the rules of the martial arts hall and vote directly. If more than 30% of the experts reject, the motion will be nullified immediately. The one-eyed elder glanced at the group of elders coldly and shouted, I don't believe that all of us in the martial arts hall are cowards. His words were righteous and powerful. However, the other elders had different expressions. They all had different thoughts in their minds. Swish. The one-eyed elder raised his right hand. Almost at the same time, Lipoji also raised his right hand without hesitation. The first elder sighed helplessly. The other elders looked at each other. After a long time, an elder with a sickly yellow face and high cheekbones raised his right hand. 3 votes. Chapter 2258. With the current 11 Saint Kings, as long as the fourth elder raised his hand, the motion would immediately be voided. However, some of the elders had already been bribed. Some feared the empty god palace's tyrannical strength, and some stood on the same side as the great elder. They all looked at the big picture and made their own decisions. No one raised their hands for a long time. With the one-eyed elder as the leader, 3 of his arms were raised alone, looking isolated and helpless. Damn it! The one-eyed elder gritted his teeth and glared at the other elders. He wanted to scold them, but he held back his anger because he knew it would be useless. Venting wasn't the way to solve the problem. In the previous 2 meetings, everything that needed to be said had been said, and everything that needed to be said had been scolded. Looks like there's a result. The great elder sighed, but he didn't know if this was the result he had hoped for. However, as he had said before, the general situation of the Milky Way was set. If they wanted to preserve the 100 Saints' Martial Hall's hundreds of millions of years of foundation, they had to endure the humiliation. Thinking about many things was one thing, but doing it was another. There had to be a trade-off. Suddenly, swoosh! The fourth arm was raised, causing an uproar. This arm wasn't in the inner circle of the elders, nor was it in the middle circle of the temple masters. It was in the outermost circle of the saints. Such disregard for the law made the elders glare angrily. In this meeting, the temple masters and saints only had the right to discuss, but not to vote. Even the temple masters didn't have the right to vote, but a mere saint dared to raise his hand. He didn't care about the rules of the 100 Saints' Martial Hall and the elders at all. The elders, who had already accumulated a lot of anger, immediately stood up in rage. Who is it? How dare you? Loud shouts sounded from all directions. The group of hall masters and saints also looked over with puzzled expressions. Lin Feng was an unfamiliar face. Some of them recognized him, while others didn't. This was especially true for the group of elders. Only a few of them recognized him. Lin Feng? The great elder recognized Lin Feng. Who is Lin Feng? Saint Crane's disciple. I heard that he became a saint 10,000 years ago. So what? He violated the rules and must be punished severely. The expressions of the elders turned cold. Lin Feng smiled indifferently as his figure flashed swiftly, and he directly moved to the innermost position and stood by the Grand Elder's side. His movements were swift, and his control of space was formidable, causing the hearts of all the elders to shake. You. The first elder was also shocked. Lin Feng's movements were silent. There wasn't even the slightest fluctuation in space. If he had attacked just now, impossible. The great elder denied in his heart. He was a super expert on the Milky Way King Sage list, and there were few opponents in the 100 Saints' Martial Palace. How could a mere saint pose a threat to him? Unless, swish. The great elder's expression changed as he looked at Lin Feng in shock. Hua, a huge aura instantly spread out and shrouded the main hall. Following the great elder's words, all the elders' expressions changed. Some were shocked, some were in disbelief, and some were pleasantly surprised. I should have the right to vote as well. Lin Feng smiled as he looked at the crowd. The strength of his aura was enough to prove everything. Ha ha! The one-eyed elder laughed wildly as he clapped his hands. Good. Now it's for vote. More than 30% of the votes, the 100 Saints Martial Palace's vassal state will submit to the Empty God Palace's motion. Wait! A hoarse voice rang out, interrupting the one-eyed elder. It was a man with a gourd-shaped head. His ears were pointed, and his hooked eyes were as sharp as swords. Although you can directly become an elder once you reach the Saint King level, you still need to go through the crowning ceremony and the banquet in the Martial Palace to be considered officially complete. You are only an elder in name now, and you don't have the right to vote. The one-eyed elder slammed the table and stood up, unable to restrain his anger. You damn gourd, twisting words and forcing logic. Shameless. Do you believe that I won't kill you with one slap? The gourd-shaped man's old face flushed red. He had lost all his face after being insulted by the one-eyed elder in front of all the saints. Everything I said is true. Since everything is done according to the rules, there can be no exceptions. Bang! The one-eyed elder smashed the golden table and pointed at the gourd-shaped man's nose. Let's go. We'll start the crowning ceremony now. That's a separate matter. Now is the time for the meeting to vote. We'll go after the vote. The gourd-shaped man gritted his teeth. Although his face was flushed red, he couldn't back down. You! The one-eyed elder glared. His fingers formed into claws, wanting to strangle the gourd-shaped man to death. All right, stop making so much noise. What are you doing? The first elder quickly came out to smooth things over. He coughed hard and lowered his voice. You are all seniors. Don't let the juniors laugh at you. Anyway, I'm not the one losing face. The one-eyed elder crossed his arms and glanced at the gourd-shaped man. I'm just following the rules. That's right. The gourd-shaped man didn't dare to look at the one-eyed elder. He stared straight at Lin Feng and shouted angrily, becoming an elder of the 100 Saints Martial Palace is a very sacred matter. How can you do it so casually and carelessly? Sacred? Lin Feng, who had been silent all this time, suddenly laughed. He glanced at the experts and said calmly, Once upon a time, I also thought that becoming a member of the 100 Saints Martial Palace was a very sacred matter. It was glorious and satisfying. But look at you now. What is sacred about you? Every one of you is groveling. You can't even straighten your backs. You! This time, it wasn't just the gourd-shaped man. The other elders also blushed and became agitated. Lin Feng's words were equivalent to scolding all the elders. Well said. The one-eyed elder looked at Lin Feng approvingly. A man should have backbone. We Chinese men will never bow to power, Li Poyan said with a smile. Li Poji agreed with a smile. Now that Lin Feng had stepped forward, his heart was completely at ease. No matter how great the situation was, Lin Feng would shoulder it, so he would be safe no matter how great the storm. Earth was like this in the past. Lin Feng smiled at Li Poyan and nodded. He glanced at the crowd and suddenly changed the topic. You want to talk about rules, right? Fine, I will talk about rules with you. I don't want to be an elder anymore. Ah! The one-eyed elder was stunned. The other elders were also stunned. They didn't know what Lin Feng was up to. I want to be the chief hall master, Lin Feng said slowly. Boom! The entire hall was shocked, and gasps were heard as they stared blankly at Lin Feng. Amazing the world! You! What right do you have to be the chief hall master? The gourd-shaped man was furious and glared. Lin Feng, you! The Grand Elder was a little hesitant and found it hard to speak. Although in theory, every elder indeed has the qualifications to become the chief hall master, it requires all the elders to vote and have made a great contribution to the martial arts hall. Furthermore, besides, there is a special clause, isn't there? Lin Feng smiled and interrupted. He stood among the elders like a pine tree, supporting the heaven and earth. The special clause says that anyone who can defeat all the elders of the martial arts hall by himself and become invincible will be the chief hall master of the 100 Saints Martial Arts Hall. No one can object to that. Lin Feng's voice reverberated in the air, and it was deep and serene. All the experts were intimidated by his unparalleled heroism, and their hearts trembled in shock. Chapter 2259. Is he crazy? All the saints looked at Lin Feng as if they were looking at a monster. They were so shocked that they were speechless. Going against all the elders by himself? What a joke! That was a total of 11 Saint King experts. Swish, swish, swish. All the elders' eyes turned red, and their fighting spirit soared. Lin Feng was openly provoking them. He didn't take them seriously at all. 1 against 11? What a joke! Although the 100 Saints Martial Hall had set up this special rule, it had never been implemented. Normally, the current Chief Hall Master would groom a successor and pass on the position to the old. However, Lin Feng had completely disregarded the rules and used such a method to compete for the position of Grand Hall Master. Not only was this a provocation, but it was also a slap to the faces of all the elders and the 100 Saints Martial Palace. In short, he was very dissatisfied. The Great Elder and the One-Eyed Elder, who had been arguing, were also stunned. They didn't expect Lin Feng to suddenly make such a request, to take the position of Chief Hall Master. Ever since the previous Chief Hall Master, Huo Shen, disappeared, the 100 Saints Martial Hall had been without a leader. There were a few elders who wanted to take over the position of Chief Hall Master, but they were either not strong enough, not popular, or did not have any special contributions. Therefore, the position of Chief Hall Master had always been empty. Brother Lin Feng, isn't this inappropriate? The One-Eyed Elder said hesitantly. Although he was on Lin Feng's side, he knew Lin Feng's intention. After all, after becoming the Chief Hall Master, all the elders would be under the jurisdiction of the Chief Hall Master, and there would be no need to vote. However, 1 against 11, there was basically no chance of winning. Those were the famous 11 Saint King experts. How could they win? Moreover, the One-Eyed Elder didn't want to fight with Lin Feng from the bottom of his heart. They were like-minded, and the One-Eyed Elder was very satisfied with Lin Feng. However, if Lin Feng insisted on carrying out the special rule, the One-Eyed Elder would have no choice but to accept the challenge. The hall masters and saints were also whispering. Senior Sister Lu Qin didn't come back to her senses for a long time. Li Poji was the only one who still had a smile on his face. Although he didn't know what level Lin Feng's strength had reached, he knew Lin Feng's character very well. If he wasn't confident, he definitely wouldn't have made such a decision. Since Lin Feng had brought it up, it proved his current strength. It had already far surpassed the Saint King realm. Lin Feng, do you want to reconsider? The Great Elder had always valued peace and was unwilling to fight. That's right. Brother Lin Feng, think about it again. This time, the One-Eyed Elder stood on the same side as the Great Elder. Lin Feng smiled. I've made up my mind. The crowd sighed. The fighting spirit in the eyes of the elders became even stronger. Being provoked again and again, even Buddha would be angry. All right then. The Great Elder let out a long sigh, feeling helpless in his heart. He said to the other elders, since that's the case, let's go to the martial arts practice field. Remember the rules of the hall, no favoritism, and do your best. Of course. The elders rubbed their palms together, wanting to vent their frustrations. Humph. The One-Eyed Elder knew that the Great Elder was talking to him. Suddenly, no need to trouble yourself. Let's do it here. Lin Feng said indifferently with his hands behind his back. Suddenly, he waved his hands, and a strong force of qi rode the wind and broke the waves, directly spreading out in a circle around the elders. Whoosh, whoosh. The hall masters and saints were pushed to the back, but they were not injured at all. It was a miraculous move. Suddenly, a large empty space appeared in the main hall. Here? The elders widened their eyes and became even more furious. Obviously, Lin Feng did not take them seriously at all. With such a close distance, he would definitely have an absolute advantage in a one-on-one fight. Too arrogant. Are you kidding? This is too domineering. He's crazy. Provoking the elders like this, it would be strange if he didn't get seriously injured. 11 against 1 and the area is so small. How can he win? Elder Lin Feng is really asking for trouble this time. The hall masters and saints discussed animatedly. Lu Qin was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Junior brother, what are you doing? Lu Qin did not know Lin Feng's intention. In fact, not to mention 11 Saint Kings, even 1,000 or 10,000 Saint Kings were nothing to Lin Feng now. If Lin Feng did not want to, they would not even be able to get close to him. Come, attack me. Lin Feng's eyes flickered as he smiled at the elders. As long as you can touch me, it'll be my loss. Bang! Lin Feng's words ignited the anger of the elders. In an instant, thunder rumbled and the ground shook. Arrows of light mixed with the terrifying sound of the wind came sharply. The entire hall was in an uproar. All the hall masters and saints were nervous as they stared ahead with wide eyes. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. All the attacks were the same. When they were 1 meter away from Lin Feng, they strangely disappeared as if they were swallowed by a different dimension. Lin Feng stood with his hands behind his back and did not even have the interest to attack. Damn it! What's going on? Don't hold back. Everyone, attack with all your strength. The elders' faces were red as they attacked with all their might. However, they were like a group of lions hitting the water but could not touch the fish in the water. It was futile. The hall masters and saints were stunned. The Saint Kings, who stood at the top of the Milky Way, were like monkeys in a circus. They did not have the demeanor of an expert at all. They tried their best, but they were still like toddlers swaying. They did not even have a decent attack, let alone touch Lin Feng. Their hearts were shocked. At this moment, everyone finally understood where Lin Feng's confidence came from. He did have the strength. Boom! 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 The elders were hysterical. At this moment, they were completely overwhelmed. They attacked with all their might as if they were in a battle to the death. However, no matter how angry they were like clowns. Lin Feng, don't hide inside. Come out if you have the ability. Let's fight face to face. That's right. What kind of man are you if you hide inside? Come out and fight to the death. The elders were so angry that they were shouting. As far as they were concerned, Lin Feng had merely obtained a defense-type super treasure. That was why he was so rampant. However, they did not know that Lin Feng's knowledge and strength were far beyond what they could see. The gap between them was too big. Lin Feng, who had been holding his hands behind his back, smiled faintly. He raised his right hand and the black lotus appeared. A boundless aura was released from the saber and pierced through the sky. In an instant, the wind and clouds changed and the entire hall was shrouded in endless darkness. The elders were shocked to find that they could not move at all. It was as if they were trapped. The aura was too terrifying. Boom! It was as if a mountain had collapsed and the world had collapsed. The black dragon roared into the sky. Lin Feng shouted and an incomparably terrifying power came from the sky. The elders' faces were pale as if they were carrying a heavy mountain. They could not resist at all. Bang! 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 The elders could not take it any more and knelt on one knee. Their faces were pale and shocked. Lin Feng was like an otherworldly monarch with a natural domineering aura. He stood among the elders with a heroic spirit that soared into the sky, and nothing in the world could shake him. Chapter 2260. He defeated all the elders in one move. Lin Feng's strength shocked all the hall masters and saints in the hall. Even if he only revealed the tip of the iceberg, it was already far beyond the level of the Milky Way. It was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot for a Saint King expert to fight against Lin Feng. "Greetings, Chief Hall Master." The one-eyed elder was the first to shout with surprise. Although he was defeated by Lin Feng, he had no resentment. Firstly, he was originally on Lin Feng's side. Secondly, he was completely shocked by Lin Feng's strength. Too strong. Even the Chief Hall Master, Wu Shen, didn't have such strength to defeat all the Saint Kings in a 1 versus 11 battle, not to mention Lin Feng only used one move. In terms of defense, none of the elders could get close to him. In terms of attack, there was nothing he couldn't destroy, and he could control it as he wished. The elders weren't injured except for the loss of energy, but they were completely defeated. "Greetings, Chief Hall Master." "Greetings, Chief Hall Master." As the one-eyed elder took the lead, the rest of the hall masters and saints came to their senses and knelt on one knee. Although they couldn't hide the shock in their eyes, the result was obvious. Lin Feng, with his tyrannical strength, defeated all the elders and ascended to the top. You could be unconvinced by his reputation and contribution to the martial arts hall, but you had to admit that his strength had completely surpassed the Saint King's. Even the previous Chief Hall Master, Wu Shen, who was ranked 3rd on the Saint King list, couldn't do this. But Lin Feng did it. It was clean and swift, and the result was decided in one move. "Greetings, Chief Hall Master." Although the elders' faces were ugly, the result was already decided. The martial arts hall's rules were above all, and even the Chief Hall Master had to follow them, let alone the elders. However, Lin Feng used such a method to shock them. Although the elders submitted to him, they suppressed the resentment and anger in their hearts. After all, they weren't as strong as him. They bowed their heads slightly, and their pale faces were filled with resentment. Lin Feng glanced at them and smiled. How could he not know that this was the reason why the 100 Saints Martial Arts Hall rarely used special rules to become the Chief Hall Master? Even if he sat in that position, the people below him wouldn't be convinced. However, he didn't care about it, because he had never thought of sitting in that position, and he was too lazy to sit in that position. "Rise." Lin Feng's voice was very calm, but there was an unquestionable power in it. An invisible force supported the group of experts, and it was like a spring breeze. "Now, I'm going to issue my first and only decree since I became the Grand Hall Master." Lin Feng's voice reverberated in the hall, causing the towering stone pillars to tremble slightly. All the elders and saints were stunned, not knowing what Lin Feng was up to. It was like a clap of thunder. All the elders and saints were dumbstruck, and they were shocked to the point their glasses fell off. How could they have imagined that Lin Feng would suddenly make such a decision? He'd exerted tremendous effort to seize the position of Grand Hall Master, yet he hadn't even sat on it when he directly passed it down? That was ridiculous. Even Li Poji himself was dumbfounded. He stared at Lin Feng with his eyes wide open, pointing at himself with his mouth slightly open. He was a little confused. Lin Feng walked to Li Poji with a smile and patted him on the shoulder. "Junior brother, the 100 Saints Martial Arts Hall will depend on you in the future. You don't have to worry about anything else. Wait for my news. Soon, there will be no virtual God Palace in the Milky Way, let alone Su Ming." Lin Feng did not lower his voice when he said the last sentence. His voice lingered in the room. Not only to Li Poji, but also to all the elders and saints present. His figure slowly passed through the saints and disappeared at the end of the hall, leaving all the cultivators dumbfounded as if they were in a dream. Did they hear it wrong? After leaving the 100 Saints Martial Arts Hall, Lin Feng immediately went to the Virtual God Palace. Since he had made a decision, he wouldn't hesitate. He didn't care about Su Ming. Li Poji was his junior brother, so he should help him. Moreover, he believed that it would be best for Li Poji to be in charge of the 100 Saints Martial Arts Hall. Li Poji not only had strength and potential, but he was also more popular than him. If he took over the 100 Saints Martial Arts Hall, He could only rely on force because he didn't want the public to accept it. There wouldn't be any problems in the short term, but there would be a lot of trouble in the long term. However, it would be different if Lipoji took over. The elders would accept it more easily. Since he was behind Lipoji, the elders would be afraid of him and would do things with reverence. As for the other hall masters and saints, since Lipoji was an elder, there wouldn't be any problems. Swish, swish, swish. Lin Feng teleported continuously, looking for the virtual god palace. He knew the general location. Plus, the 7 empires in the Milky Way were evenly distributed, so it wasn't difficult to find. Soon, Lin Feng arrived at the virtual god palace, which was at the edge of the Silver Martial Empire. It occupied dozens of huge star systems. They didn't fear the Silver Martial Empire at all. Who are you? Stand there. This is the territory of the virtual god palace. Trespassers will die. The group of virtual god palace experts was arrogant. Every one of them was a saint. Only saints from the 7 empires were qualified to be a part of the virtual god palace. Their strength was high in the Milky Way. With the power of the virtual god palace, they could easily destroy one of the empires and replace it. Boom. Chi. Chi. They attacked directly without mercy. 3 black hole-level attacks shot toward Lin Feng, but they were instantly killed. They couldn't even get close. Lin Feng stepped into the territory of the virtual god palace and spread his aura. There are quite a lot of experts. Looks like Su Ming has put in a lot of effort in the past 10,000 years. Lin Feng smiled faintly. He searched the entire territory with his aura and soon found the aura he was looking for. There was only one aura. He should be Voidwalker, said Qin Wentian. What Lin Feng sensed was the power of the master of the Black Region. It had surpassed the limit of the Milky Way, the immortal chaos hole. Su Ming was at the limit of the immortal chaos hole and ranked first among the sacred kings in the Milky Way. As the restrictions on his power disappeared, his breakthrough to become the master of the Black Region could be said to be smooth. His strength was naturally higher than the other experts in the Milky Way. But he's also strange. With such strength, it would be easy for him to get a defensive treasure. As long as there are no accidents, he can leave the Milky Way super black hole and enter the Greater Thousand Universe to be reborn. But he wants to stay here. Lin Feng didn't understand. It was difficult to enter the Milky Way super black hole from the outside, but it was much easier and less dangerous to leave from the inside. Su Ming had the strength and knew that the Milky Way super black hole was at the end, but he didn't leave. What was he after? Chapter 2261. Inside the empty God Palace, it was beautiful. There were countless beauties and butterflies, and even the air was suffused with the smell of spring. The group of experts enjoyed themselves endlessly and were completely intoxicated by this place. They enjoyed the bliss of the mortal world and didn't know how long the world was. However, at the core of the empty God Palace, there was a completely sealed palace. It was lonely and simple. There was no extravagance, nor was there any chatter, wine, women, or wealth. There was only extremely dense heaven and earth spirit chi and a lone man in armor. He had a peak chaos whole dark treasure and was as strong as the master of the Black Region. In the Milky Way, Su Chi was invincible. If he wanted to, he could dominate the Milky Way with just a little effort. However, he did not do so. The 7 empires were still standing. Although the empty God Palace was the strongest force in the Milky Way, Su Chi did not attack too fiercely. It was like cooking a delicacy. He did not roast it but stewed it slowly. Su Chi, who was cultivating, suddenly opened his eyes and revealed an extremely shocked expression. He straightened his body, revealing his perfect body. His eyes were bright and full of ambition. His lips, which were as thin as a pair of wings, were slightly pursed. His fists, which were like battle axes, were tightly clenched, emitting a raging power. He was a descendant of the human and demon races. Not only did he have a strong physical body and bloodline, but he also had shocking comprehension. He had the essence of both the human and demon races in his body. He killed 18 Saint Kings of the Empty God Palace in one move. What terrifying strength! Even someone as strong as Su Qi was terrified. This person's strength had far exceeded his expectations. He knew how strong his subordinates were. Even Su Qi himself would have to expend a lot of energy to defeat them. However, this person had done it easily. He could summon clouds and rain with a flip of his hand. As expected, there is always someone stronger. Su Qi let out a long breath. This was one of the reasons why he was afraid. He did not dare to wreak havoc in the Milky Way and chose to stew it slowly. This was because you never knew if there was an expert more terrifying than you in a certain corner. Whoosh, space rippled, and a figure appeared in the cultivation room. It was a black-clothed youth. His expression was calm, and he did not seem nervous at all because he was in an unfamiliar place. Instead, he looked around curiously. Su Qi stood there and carefully sized up the black-clothed young man. He didn't speak, nor did he attack. Because he knew that he wasn't a match for this black-clothed young man. Are you Xue? Lin Feng glanced at this tall man. Although he didn't reveal his aura, he couldn't hide it from Lin Feng. His strength was that of the Black Region Master. Su Ming greets Senior. Although Lin Feng looked very young in the path of martial arts, those who were stronger were the seniors. Lin Feng was obviously stronger, so Su Ming's attitude was humble and respectful. He did not appear to be disobedient and was actually very appropriate. As the saying goes, one does not slap a smiling face. This was why Su Ming had held back when he was expanding the virtual God Palace. You're smart. Lin Feng glanced at Su Chen. I wouldn't dare. Su Qi hurriedly bowed his head. May I know Senior's name? Lin Feng. Lin Feng didn't intend to hide his name. Milky Way Horde Leader, Lin Feng. Su Qi's eyes lit up. When he was expanding the virtual God Palace, he had strategically given up on many areas because he didn't know the strength of his opponent. The strength of Milky Way Horde Leader, Lin Feng, had always been a mystery, so Su Qi was afraid. Lin Feng smiled. Just as he had expected, Su Qi wasn't simple. He was smart and cautious. This was also why Su Qi was still alive even though the other experts on the Milky Way King Sage list had died. People like him were used to keeping a trump card for himself in case of any changes. I'm curious. You should know that the Milky Way is nearing its end and is on the verge of death. Lin Feng looked directly at Su Qi, his eyes shining. With your strength, you can definitely leave the super black hole and protect yourself. Why don't you leave? Why do you want to stay here and build the virtual God Palace? What are you after? Lin Feng suddenly raised his voice. Su Qi's brows furrowed slightly as if he had a plan. He quickly explained, Senior, please forgive me. Most people are ambitious and want to try to control everything. That way, they won't have come to this world in vain. Su Qi smiled bitterly. I'm just an ordinary person. It's hard for me to escape from my inner demons. I've lost my way because of power. Sigh. Please give me a way out. From now on, I will reflect on myself, disband the virtual God Palace, and cultivate diligently. Lin Feng looked at Su Qi. Although his words were sincere, his heart wasn't. His half-truths were just to protect himself. So, you won't tell me? Lin Feng asked. This. Cold sweat broke out on Su Qi's forehead. He said, I don't dare to hide anything from you, Senior, but I really don't have any ulterior motives. I was born in the Milky Way and grew up here. Senior, you're also a person who values relationship. You should know that to an expert, one's home is where one's heart belongs. How could I bear to leave the Milky Way? Qi. An invisible force bound Su Qi. The latter's face paled, as he revealed a look of panic. The moment Lin Feng attacked, Su Qi knew the difference in strength between them. It wasn't just a little bit. He was a master of the dark region, but in front of Lin Feng, he was like an ant that couldn't even withstand a single blow. He thought that there was a difference in strength, but it wasn't big. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. I'll give you one last chance. Are you going to tell me or not? Lin Feng said indifferently. Senior. Su Qi's body trembled as his face paled. I was blinded by greed and made many mistakes. Senior, please forgive me. I'm already regretful and will do my best to make up for my past mistakes. Gotcha! Su Qi's eyes widened. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he couldn't say anything. His eyes gradually lost their luster. Su Ming's body fell to the ground without making a sound. He was completely dead. Even if you died 1,000 times, it wouldn't be enough for you. Lin Feng knew about the empty God Palace's misdeeds. Even though Su Qi tried his best to stay out of it and act humble, to him, it was all nonsense. From the start, Lin Feng didn't plan on forgiving Su Qi. This included the entire empty God Palace. This shouldn't have existed in the first place. Do you think that I won't be able to find out if you don't tell me? Lin Feng directly wiped away Su Qi's corpse and destroyed the entire empty God Palace. The empty God Palace that had been arrogant in the Milky Way for thousands of years came quickly and left even faster. Without Su Qi's support, the empty God Palace was no longer glorious. The remaining scattered soldiers would soon be killed by the 7 empires and disappear forever. There was no need for him to worry about this. Is there anything special about the Milky Way? Or is there something different about the death, explosion, and collapse of the Milky Way super black hole? Lin Feng was curious. Chapter 2262. Lin Feng searched through the treasures, scriptures, and treasures of Su Ming within the Mirage God Palace. But he did not obtain any useful information. He already knew some basic information. For instance, the Milky Way super black hole was an innately formed black hole. Precisely because it was innately formed, the Milky Way super black hole would gradually grow and weaken. The moment such a black hole reached its end, it would collapse and explode, leaving behind a perfect cosmos crystal, black hole chaotic origin heart. Different grades depended on one's luck. But usually, the black hole chaotic origin heart left behind after the collapse of a super black hole would be of the highest grade. Even if it was bad, it would not be too bad. If one was lucky enough to obtain the highest grade black hole chaotic origin heart, he would become rich overnight. But this had to wait until the Milky Way super black hole exploded before it could form. If Su Qi stayed here, he would only be devoured by the explosion of the Milky Way super black hole. Even I would not be an exception. Lin Feng was clear that when the Milky Way super black hole reached its end, it would frantically devour all energy within in order to survive. As long as it could devour, even if it could only last for a moment, it would do its best to devour it. It was not because it was greedy. The Milky Way super black hole only had the most basic consciousness. It relied on its instincts to move. Just like how an animal would eat when it was hungry, the Milky Way super black hole's devouring was the same. Perhaps he wants to stay here so that he can accurately know when the Milky Way super black hole will die. The moment it explodes, he can seize the opportunity? Lin Feng pondered. There was a possibility, but doing so was extremely risky. The moment the Milky Way super black hole reached its end, it might not be possible to escape even if he wanted to. Especially when the Milky Way super black hole was nearing its end, the Black Domain Master might be able to escape. But when it reached its end, he might not be able to. He continued searching. Lin Feng believed that Su Qi had his reasons for doing so. Given his cautious personality, he would not leave behind any treasures. Even though he knows it is extremely dangerous, he still chose to stay here. In other words, there must be something worth risking. Furthermore, the rewards will definitely outweigh the price. Lin Feng's thoughts were meticulous. His deductions were clear. He was clear of Su Qi's personality. Furthermore, there were many books in the Mirage God Palace, especially those that were old, damaged, and even incomplete. The empty God Palace had been established for less than 10,000 years, but it had so many books. Without a doubt, it was Su Ming who had ordered it. What information is he looking for? Lin Feng was very curious because this was most likely the reason why Su Qi had remained in the Milky Way. He was risking his life to obtain this information. However, he still couldn't find it within a short period of time. Forget it, let's put it aside for now. Although Lin Feng was curious, he didn't think too much about it. After all, there was a huge gap between him and Su Ming. What Su Ming wanted to get might be of little value to him. Most importantly, he still had a lot of things to do, so there was no need to waste time. Junior brotherly, you don't have to worry about the 100 Saints Martial Hall. Let's go back to the Dongwang Empire to see Prince Yushu, and then return to the Milky Way territory. Lin Feng was not in a hurry. Although the Milky Way super black hole was at the end of its decline, it had yet to begin its final frenzy of devouring. In other words, there was still plenty of time, at least a few hundred years. Once it entered the final stage of frenzied devouring, it would be the true beginning of the end. Until all the planets and resources were completely devoured, and there was no more energy source, the galactic super black hole would die of hunger. In other words, it would collapse, explode, and disappear from the universe forever. In the Dongwang Empire, in a magnificent palace with carved walls, beautiful singers danced, and a row of musicians played the sounds of nature. One by one, the strong cultivators drank and laughed wantonly, surrounded by beautiful women, and indulged in a life of luxury. At the head of the palace, a man with thick eyebrows, big eyes, and a crown on his head raised his wine glass and laughed heartily. I'll leave my business to you in the future. After it's done, I won't mistreat you. Just say the word, Your Highness. Haha, Your Highness is too polite. We're all in the same boat. Who else should we help if not you? Qin Yushu, who hasn't even grown his hair, dares to compete with Your Highness. He doesn't know what's good for him. The forces of the 12 sects are all vassals of the virtual God Palace, and we follow their lead. Your Highness worships the virtual God Palace like a god. We will pledge our loyalty to you and remove all obstacles for Your Highness to ascend the throne. The group of strong cultivators all agreed with the man with an extraordinary appearance, and their eyes revealed their ambition. He was the current Dongwang Empire's first prince, Qin Huan. At the same time, he was the first crown prince and had followed Qin Wushuang for the longest time. He had a wide network and was deeply rooted in the empire. Therefore, when Qin Wushuang died that day, even though the 100 Saints Martial Hall supported the other crown prince, Qin Yushu, they couldn't defeat Qin Huan. The two crown princes each had their own merit. A bunch of idiot. Although Qin Huan had a smile on his face, his heart was full of disdain. He was just borrowing the power of the virtual God Palace. Even if the virtual God Palace ascended the throne in the future, he would still have to be polite. Since that was the case, he might as well treat them with courtesy. A wise man submits to circumstances. I'll borrow your hands to get rid of Yushu. When the time comes, I won't have to bear the name of killing my own flesh and blood. Qin Huan sneered inwardly. With my connections in the Empire and the support of the virtual God Palace, without Qin Yushu fighting for it, the throne will be easily obtained. Qin Huan had already planned everything in secret. He knew that his father favored Qin Yushu and was even about to issue an edict to remove him from the position of crown prince. Fortunately, he happened to overhear the news and avoided the trouble. Old man, don't blame me. Blame yourself. Qin Huan had a ruthless heart under his elegant appearance. If you hadn't gone too far, I wouldn't have been so ruthless. Qin Huan ground his teeth and drank the wine in his hand. I, Qin Huan, am the crown prince and have made great contributions to the empire. How can I not compare to Qin Yushu? Not only did you pass the throne to him, but you also want to remove me from the position of crown prince. You deserve to die. Qin Huan gritted his teeth and his eyes were full of hatred. He was unwilling. He was unwilling to see everything he had worked so hard to build return to its original state. Therefore, he took the initiative to kill his father Qin Wushuang. Now it was the same. He only needed to kill Qin Yushu and everything would be over. After that, he would be the only crown prince. The throne of the Dongwang Empire would belong to him. It's time for you to die, Qin Yushu. Qin Huan's handsome face showed a hint of ferocity. He was very proud and confident in his plan. Everyone in the hall was his chess piece. Suddenly, bang! The door of the main hall was smashed open. A black figure slowly walked in. It was as if he was taking a stroll in a courtyard. His expression was indifferent. The music and dancing suddenly stopped. Everyone looked over in shock. They were somewhat dumbfounded. Who are you? Crown Prince Qin Huan frowned and shouted. The black figure smiled faintly and raised his head. The person who will take your life. Chapter 2263. Imperial Palace. It was connected to the 100 Saints' Martial Palace. After the sudden death of Qin Wushuang, the two princes, Qin Yushu and Qin Huan, started a fierce game of chess. At this moment, in Qin Yushu's palace, there were also many experts gathered to discuss countermeasures. Crown Prince, strike first and gain the upper hand. That's right, Crown Prince. We've received news that His Highness is already preparing to take action. Maruzo sect, Qiliang Mountain sect, Kongyu Dao Manor, and other sects affiliated with the Virtual God Palace have all sent out their elites to harm you. You can't be soft-hearted, Crown Prince. All the ministers tried their best to persuade him, sacrificing themselves to persuade him. However, Qin Yushu was still frowning. She didn't say a word. Beside her was Hall Master Wu from the 100 Saints' Martial Palace. The other was Qin Qing who looked like a fairy who had walked out of a painting. She was a rare genius of the Fairy Luo Palace. Her strength had already reached the level of Saint King. Like Qin Yushu, Qin Qing and Hall Master Wu were also unable to speak. These ministers didn't know, but they were well aware of Prince Yushu's current situation. It wasn't that he didn't want to make the first move, but that he was powerless. He wasn't as powerful as the eldest Prince Qin Huan to begin with, and his foundation was too shallow. If not for the support of the 100 Saints Martial Hall, he would have been killed by the first Prince, Qin Huan. However, the Virtual God Palace was now so powerful that it completely suppressed the 100 Saints Martial Hall. Qin Huan had already secretly joined forces with the Virtual God Palace in order to ascend to the throne. As a result, the difference in strength between the two sides was even greater. How could Qin Yu be soft-hearted? Alas! Qin Yushu placed his hands behind his back and lightly sighed. As the saying goes, even the cleverest housewife cannot cook without rice. Although he was the crown prince and deeply loved by his father had suddenly died without leaving anything behind. Even if he wanted to, he was powerless. Crown Prince, why don't we move to the 100 Saints Martial Palace? Hall Master Wu suggested. Once they entered the 100 Saints Martial Hall, with the protection of the Martial Arts Hall, their safety would be guaranteed. It's not necessarily a bad thing to hide for now, Qin Qing said softly. Qin Yushu shakes her head. If I do that, I'll be giving up the throne to someone else. It'll be just like the rumor my big brother spread. My prestige in the Empire is not as high as Big Brother's. Taking a step back will certainly bring me peace, but at the same time, I'll lose everything. I don't yearn for the throne, but this is my father's last wish. Even if I die, I will do my best to fulfill it. Besides, Qin Yushu pursed her lips tightly. A beam of light shot out from her eyes. Others might not know, but he knew that his elder brother, Qin Huan, was most likely the culprit behind his father's death. Qin Yu was unwilling to let a man who killed his father sit on the throne. But now there was nothing he could do. He knew very well what would happen next. His brother, Qin Huan, would most likely send experts to kill him. Although he had saint rulers by his side, his brother had even more experts, and they were even stronger. If the 100 Saints Martial Hall had been at its peak, it would have been able to decide everything. However, the 100 Saints Martial Hall was currently being suppressed by the empty God Palace. The 100 Saints Martial Hall could not even take care of itself. How much help could they provide? He and Qin Huan were both crown princes. From a neutral standpoint, the 100 Saints Martial Hall had already interfered too much. The hall was enveloped by a gloomy cloud, and the silence was suffocating. All the ministers and experts were exhausted and racked their brains to think of a countermeasure, yet they were unable to find a perfect plan to resolve this urgent situation. Unless a divine weapon descends from the heavens and a miracle occurs. Qin Yushu laughed at herself. Her attitude was pretty good. He was not afraid of death. What was there to be afraid of? As long as he died honorably, it was enough. Even if there was less than a 10% chance, he would fight until the end. He would rather die in glory than live in dishonor. Creak, the heavy door creaked, and a beam of light lit up the dim hall. As the door slowly opened, the light became even brighter, illuminating the entire hall, including the experts and ministers. It was a familiar black figure. With a smile on his face, he walked in slowly. His face was strange yet familiar. Not many people knew him, but Qin Yushu and Qin Qing recognized him clearly. Although they had been separated for 10,000 years, they had never forgotten him. They had lived and died together. They had been good brothers for life. Long time no see, Yushu, Qing. Lin Feng's smile was like a spring breeze, sweeping away the gloominess in the hall. His calm confidence washed away all the negative energy in the hall. "Haha, Brother Lin, you've finally come back." Qin Yushu rushed forward and gave Lin Fan a bear hug. Qin Qing followed behind him with tears in her eyes. She pursed her red lips and stared at Lin Feng. Thousands of words came out of her mouth as she said, "Mr. Lin, how have you been?" Lin Feng looked at Qin Qing with a smile, and then looked at Qin Yushu. "Brother Lin, you are still as handsome as ever." Qin Yushu smiled and looked at Lin Feng up and down. "It seems that you have improved a lot in the past 10,000 years. I wonder who is more powerful, you or Qing." Although he could not see through Lin Feng, Qin Qing's talent was not as good as Lin Feng's, but she had already become a Saint King. In Qin Yushu's opinion, Lin Feng must be a Saint King now. "Master Lin, you are much more powerful than me," Qin Qing said with admiration. There was an uproar in the surroundings. Everyone looked at Lin Feng in shock. They did not know where this powerful black-clothed young man came from. The more powerful one was, the deeper one's perception would be. Qin Qing was also shocked. She had relied on all kinds of resources in the palace, the treasures, the best books, secret techniques, and cultivation places to become a Saint King. But now that she saw Lin Feng, she realized how big the gap was. It was like the gap between heaven and earth. Lin Feng's strength was far from what she could fathom. "Really?" Qin Yu was overjoyed. He looked at Lin Feng and clicked his tongue. "I forgot that Brother Lin used to be like this. You don't show your true colors. You don't say anything, but you amaze the world with a single brilliant feat." "Of course not." Lin Feng smiled. Qin Yu squinted his eyes and said, "Don't be so modest. My guess might not be right. Qing is always right. Sai, you and Qing are both above others now. You are free and unfettered, but I am walking on thin ice. Sai, comparisons are really frustrating." Then, he could not help but shake his head. "How could it be?" Lin Feng said with a smile, "You are the emperor of the Dongwang Empire. I forgot to congratulate you, Prince Yushu." "Oh no, you should be called monarch." "Monarch?" Qin Yushu was stunned. So were Qin Qing and Temple Master Wu. The ministers looked at each other in confusion. They did not know what nonsense Lin Feng was talking about. "Brother Lin, you may have just come back." Qin Yushu came to his senses. He smiled bitterly and said, "Now the empire is full of dangers. My brother Qin Huan and I are both princes, and my father, I know." Lin Feng nodded and interrupted him, "But Qin Huan is dead." "What?" Everyone was stunned. "Dead? How?" Temple Master Wu was dumbfounded. "I just killed him," Lin Feng casually said. The entire hall was filled with gasps as everyone stared at Lin Feng with widened eyes. It was as though they were looking at a monster. Chapter 2264. Everyone was shocked. That was Crown Prince Qin Huan, the heir to the throne. At this moment, this black-clothed young man seemed as if he'd stomped an ant to death, and he spoke of it casually as if he could stomp on and kill the black-clothed young man, as if it was as easy as blowing off dust. As far as they knew, Crown Prince Qin Huan was surrounded by many powerful people. Not to mention the saints, there were several holy kings protecting him in secret. Moreover, Crown Prince Qin Huan was very careful and followed a large number of guards wherever he went. It was difficult to even get close to him, let alone kill him. Was it true? After the shock, everyone looked at Lin Feng with suspicion. After all, they had never seen such a powerful young man in the Milky Way. "Brother Lin, are you serious?" It took a long time for Qin Yushu to come back to her senses. She looked at Lin Feng in a daze. The thing that had been troubling her the most was solved in an instant. She felt her whole body relax in an instant. Lin Feng nodded. "Including his henchmen. I also killed some of them." "Some of them?" Qin Yushu's mouth twitched. Lin Feng said, "I killed those who followed him and didn't bother to look for the rest. Anyway, without the dragon head, the rest of the soldiers can't do anything." "Those who followed him?" Hall Master Wu's eyes were like lanterns. He was shocked. Those were the most powerful people of the sects affiliated to the Virtual God Palace. "Are they all dead?" "Should be." Lin Feng nodded. Everyone took a deep breath and looked at each other. They had some doubts before, but now they were all gone. Everything this ordinary-looking young man in black said was true. The Crown Prince Qin Huan was really killed by him. Great. The Crown Prince can be saved. What timely help. God bless us. All the ministers were tearing up, unable to contain their joy. The two Crown Princes fought for the throne. Crown Prince Yushu was at a disadvantage, and was being suppressed by the Crown Prince Qin Huan. If not for the protection of the 100 Saints Martial Hall, he would have died. However, as the Virtual God Palace began to suppress the 100 Saints Martial Hall, Crown Prince Yushu was on the verge of collapse. At this moment, the Crown Prince Qin Huan died. Crown Prince Yushu had no opponent and could naturally ascend the throne and become the new emperor of the Dongwang Empire. What a timely reign! Qin Er's beautiful eyes looked at Lin Feng, flashing with a different kind of light. He was still the same as before, turning the tides and doing what others could not. No matter how difficult or troublesome the matter was, it was a piece of cake for him. Qin Yushu laughed involuntarily. Just a moment ago, he was still thinking about how to get through this hurdle, thinking that he could only rely on the heavens to save him. He didn't expect that Lin Feng would appear and solve all the problems. "Congratulations, Your Highness! All the obstacles have been cleared. You will soon ascend the throne and rule the Dongwang Empire." Hall Master Wu cupped his hands and said, as if relieved of a heavy burden, "Congratulations, Crown Prince." The ministers knelt on one knee and spoke in unison. All of their faces were brimming with smiles, and many of them were so excited that tears fell from their eyes. "Everyone, please get up," Qin Yu said with a smile on her face. She wasn't as excited as the others. Although she was happy, she was calm. Her eyes were filled with worry. "Crown Prince, are you worried about the Virtual God Palace?" Qin had been with him all this time, so she naturally knew. Qin Yu nodded slightly and said, "The Virtual God Palace put all their chips on Big Brother. Although Big Brother Qin Huan's death removed the crisis, he also offended the Virtual God Palace at the same time. I'm afraid that his road to becoming the emperor will not be smooth. The virtual God Palace. These 3 words were like the heavens above, making it hard for everyone to breathe. Not only the Dongwang Empire, but also the other 6 empires. The virtual God Palace's influence was extremely deep, and some empires were even directly controlled by it. The virtual God Palace exists in name only, Lin Feng said leisurely. Once again, everyone's eyes were focused on him, and they were all stunned. Lin Feng swept his gaze across and looked at Qin Yushu. He smiled and said, "Brother Qin, just be at ease and be the monarch. Now that the 100 Saints Martial Hall has chosen a Grand Hall Master and formed a pagoda, it will become your strongest backing. As for the virtual God Palace, the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. With the death of Su Ming and the death of his elite Saint Kings, the virtual God Palace no longer has anyone to rely on. The 7 empires have been suppressed for a long time, and they will not let go of such a good opportunity. They will definitely crush the masterless virtual God Palace and beat them when they are down." There was silence. Everyone stared at Lin Feng in a daze, as if they were listening to a story, completely lost. Su Ming was dead? How did Su Ming, the strongest in the Milky Way, die? And a group of elite Saint Kings had died together with him? How could it be? The air was suffocating. Lin Feng patted Qin Yushu's shoulder and nodded to Qin Qing. Then, he turned and left with a smile. He had done what he needed to do, and he had seen all the people he needed to see. It was time for him to return to the Milky Way territory. Creak. The heavy door creaked, and light illuminated the majestic hall, illuminating the faces of every strong person. It was as if they had been reborn. Lin Feng's figure gradually disappeared from everyone's sight, but they were still shocked and angry. This news was too shocking. It was far more shocking than the news of the death of the Crown Prince Qin Huan. Because the one who had died this time was Su Ming, the one who had died was the virtual God Palace. "It's unbelievable," Qin Yushu murmured. Qin Yu muttered. Even so, he believed that since Lin Feng said it, it must be true. The tyrannical and unreasonable Void God Palace was truly destroyed. How did Su Ming die? He's a terrifying existence that can kill 10 saint rulers by himself, Jian Qin sighed. Qin Yushu sighed. Hall Master Wu, who was beside him, was also dumbfounded. He muttered to himself, "It's impossible. Nothing is impossible." Qin Qing's clear voice sounded. Her beautiful eyes looked in the direction Lin Feng left, and she said softly, "Young Master Lin's strength has reached an unbelievable level. He killed the Crown Prince Qin Huan. Su Ming was also killed by him." His tone was filled with admiration, respect, and a trace of affection. Qin Qing looked at him deeply, buried in the bottom of her heart, touching the depths of her heart. In the main hall, all the ministers were dumbfounded. They were already stunned by this shocking news. With their vision and experience, they couldn't imagine that kind of scene at all. It was even harder for them to digest it in a short time. But the truth was the truth. It wouldn't change. "Thank you, Brother Lin." Qin Yushu was deeply grateful. Back then, he had only given Lin Feng a top-grade defensive chaotic whole dark treasure, the Imperial Black Armor. He didn't expect that 10,000 years later, Lin Feng would give him such a big gift. After leaving the palace, Lin Feng had no more worries. He was alone and free. He had always remembered Qin Yushu's kindness in giving him the armor. Now, his wish had been fulfilled. Plus, he had destroyed the virtual God Palace and stabilized the 100 Saints Martial Hall. The Dongwang Empire could now develop normally. Soon, Qin Yushu would be the emperor again. Back to the Milky Way territory. Lin Feng sighed softly. For him, the real challenge had just begun. Chapter 2265. Outside the Milky Way super black hole, the 3 forces each had their own agenda. Everyone wanted to obtain the black hole chaotic origin heart, left behind after the explosion of the Milky Way super black hole. But the Hull clan and the West Eel mercenary group knew that it wasn't an easy task because Devil Godly Sure was still eyeing them. He was clad in a set of ferocious-looking black armor. He was a peak heavenly god. Devil Godly Sure was an apex expert even in the UNXIN Cosmos Nation. He was not someone the He clan or the West Eel mercenary group could compare with. Even though they had more people and a large number of Cosmos ships, the chances of them snatching the Black Hole Chaotic Origin heart under the nose of Devil Godly Sure were not high. Those idiots from the Hull clan. They want to compete with the Devil Godly Chi? They don't know what's good for them. The leader of the West Eel mercenary group, West Eel, sneered. Big brother, have you really decided to take the risk? The vice commander, Shark North, asked with a frown. Of course, second brother. Dong Ming, who was wearing a bright red armor, glanced at them and said, among the three forces, we can't compare to the Hull clan in terms of background and number. We can't compare to Li Sure in terms of strength. How can we not take some risks? West Eel's eyes were sharp as he stared at the Milky Way super black hole. Mercenaries have always been licking their wounds. Now that the black hole has completely withered, a large number of ordinary objects have been swallowed up, leaving behind only the essence. Other than the black hole chaotic origin heart, there might be other precious treasures too. West Eel's eyes were filled with ambition. The Southern Siren said in a deep voice, I just don't know if it's an innate or acquired black hole. Won't we know once we go in? Dong Ing licked her beautiful lips with her bright red tongue. If it is a postnatal black hole, there would not be a black hole chaotic origin heart. The explosion would be much weaker, and the treasures inside would be much more valuable. If it's a naturally formed black hole, then we'll consider ourselves unlucky. West Eel's voice was cold. That might not be the case. Innate black holes, if one could withstand the explosive force from the center of the black hole, he would be the closest to the black hole chaotic origin heart. That would greatly increase his chances of obtaining it. The vice commander, Shark North, said calmly, regardless of whether it's a naturally formed black hole or an acquired black hole, it's easy to get out but hard to get in. No one knows what will happen if we enter. Even the demon Godly Sure doesn't dare to take the risk, especially when the black hole is in its decline period. It is even more terrifying. Say no more, second brother. I've made up my mind. West Eel raised his head, his gaze sharp. My West Eel mercenary group is neither too high nor too low in Yunshin Cosmic Nation. It's hard for my brothers and sisters to climb to the top. Now that we have this opportunity, we can't miss it. If I don't succeed, I'll die trying. Let's go all out. The Southern Siren yelled. You can't leave me behind. Dong Ing blinked her eyes, looking very charming. Shark North sighed softly and said, since that's the case, us four brothers will share the same fortune and misfortune. Let's see what heaven's will is like. We shall share blessings and misfortunes together. I don't wish to be born in the same year, month, and day, but I wish to die in the same year, month, and day. Ha ha! Boom! A gigantic universe ship suddenly let out a loud rumbling sound, shaking the heavens. The West Eel Mercenary Group's golden armor engraved with the West Eel Mercenary Group's emblem covered the body of the ship, forming a level 3 defense. In terms of the quality of the ship, the West Eel Mercenary Group was not inferior to the Hull clans. After all, this was one of the most important components of a mercenary group. Whoosh! In an instant, the spaceship entered the Milky Way super black hole and disappeared. Swish! Demon Godly Sure sneered as he shot out a beam of light. Stupid coward. Only those without strength will run away from the battle. Just the four of you want to snatch the black hole chaotic origin heart? Demon Godly Sure's eyes were filled with disdain and disdain. He was absolutely confident that so what if the West Eel Mercenary Group got it first? The entire starfield was under his control. On the other side, where the Hull clan was, several gigantic universe ships were docked. The West Eel Mercenary Group had created such a huge formation that they could see clearly. "Great Commander, are we going in?" a silver-armored male asked. "No need." The voice came from a handsome human male who was 3 meters tall. There were 3 white veined patterns on his face. His ears were sharp and pointed backwards. He was wearing a silver-white battle armor, and his entire body was emitting a powerful aura. He was the #1 expert of the Hull clan, Wang Qi. "How long until the Patriarch arrives?" Great Commander Wang Qi asked. "If it's fast, it'll be 200 years. If it's slow, it'll be 300 years. The silver-armored male cupped his hands. Great Commander Wang Qi said, "Continue monitoring the activity of the black hole. If there are any abnormalities, report it immediately. We have our own advantage. We can deal with any changes by remaining unchanged. Everything will be discussed after the Patriarch arrives." "Yes, Great Commander." The silver-armored male acknowledged. The Milky Way territory. After 10,000 years of development, things had changed. Although it was located in the Black Wolf Gene Empire, because of Lin Feng's strength and his status in the 100 Saints Martial Hall, the Milky Way territory was like a holy land. Even the king of the Black Wolf Gene Empire had to be polite. Needless to say, the rulers of the powerful forces and the dignitaries of the empire all flattered and fawned over him. Here, the Huaxia lineage was the real power. "I haven't been out for hundreds of years." Lin Feng strolled in the Milky Way territory. There were 2 true dragon avatars in the Milky Way territory. One of them was of average strength and did not cultivate much. He spent more time with his family and children. The other one cultivated in the true dragon black domain, guarding the Milky Way territory, and mainly cultivated the path of the soul. At that time, the strength of his original body and this true dragon avatar were actually about the same. But now, the difference was like heaven and earth. Even if his original body did not cultivate the soul, his attainments in the path of the soul were far superior to this true dragon avatar. There's no harm in leaving something behind. This was Lin Feng's plan at that time. He could guard the Milky Way territory and leave himself a way out. "Our Huaxia clan has finally blossomed and bore fruit." Lin Feng was very pleased. The speed of human reproduction was quite fast. 1 became 2, 2 became 4, 4 became 8, and 8 became 16. It only took 100 years. Although the bloodline of the Huaxia clan was shallow and their starting point was low, their comprehension and willpower were quite good. These were things that could not be improved postnatally. On the other hand, the bloodline could be stimulated postnatally. Therefore, although the growth of the Huaxia clan was slow in the early stages, their strength increased faster as time went on. Junior brother Li Poji was the same. His disciple Xiao Yu was the same. Now, he was wandering in the Milky Way and his strength had reached the saint level. Not bad. It's not as chaotic as the Milky Way. Although there are subtle flaws, there will be contradictions where there are people. When the water is too clear, there will be no fish. Let it develop freely. Lin Feng did not want to interfere too much as long as the general direction did not change. People had hearts and emotions. Of course, there would be all kinds of problems. This was something that could not be avoided. Earth is right in front. After a few consecutive teleportations, Lin Feng quickly entered the solar system. He felt the warmth of the solar system. The familiar atmosphere, the rotation of the planets and the illumination of the sun. His heart was full of warmth. "I'm finally home." Lin Feng smiled. Chapter 2266. Today's solar system had changed a lot. Science and technology were advanced, and martial arts were flourishing. All the planets, even the farthest Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, had been transformed into habitable planet. Of course, with the strength of today's strong people on Earth, even untransformed planets could easily survive. 10,000 years was neither short nor long, but because of the existence of the Milky Way territory and Lin Feng's support, the entire Earth had changed. The gene level of the Huaxia people had improved tremendously. It was difficult to become a martial artist in the past, but now it was easy for them to reach the planet level. Lin Feng was familiar with the solar system. One of his true dragon avatars had been left on Earth a long time ago to stabilize the situation and witness the rise of the Huaxia people and Earth. But the most important thing was that he could accompany his family at all times. Parents, wife, children, these were the most important things to him. Saint Relic, Great Wall. Teacher is really amazing. This is definitely not an ordinary true treasure. Lin Feng stepped into the Saint Relic and sighed. One's strength was one's vision. Although his true dragon avatar was cultivating in the true dragon black domain, its strength was completely incomparable to his original body. He was used to seeing pinnacle true treasures, and his combat power was comparable to that of a heavenly god. As soon as he stepped into the Great Wall, he felt different. Although it may not be as good as the 10,000 origin mustard stone, it should be close. Much stronger than a pinnacle true treasure. At least a pinnacle heavenly path true treasure. Lin Feng knew very well. With his current strength, he still couldn't shake the Great Wall. This was evident. The Greater Thousand Universe is really amazing. Lin Feng sighed. He was very curious about where his teacher got such a super treasure. Only the endless universe, full of mysteries, could have such opportunities. On a wandering planet, no matter how good the opportunity was, one could only get a pinnacle true treasure at most. After all, the power limit of a wandering planet determined everything. However, the universe was boundless and contained everything. Could it be that teacher's death is related to the Great Wall? The Lin Feng of today was much more knowledgeable than before. Although the universe was big, there were even more experts. Battles over treasures were common. Unless a strong warrior in the universe was from a famous family, the treasures they possessed would usually not meet their expectations, or it could be said that they would not be able to fully unleash their power. His teacher, the true dragon sovereign, was only at the limit of a black region master. In other words, he had yet to truly grasp the heavenly Tao and become a deity. However, he had obtained a supreme treasure that even a divine-level expert could not control. Treasuring a jade ring is a crime. Lin Feng nodded to himself. In the past, he had thought that his teacher's strength was extremely strong, but now he knew that his teacher's strength could only be considered ordinary in the universe. An ultimate powerhouse like the Master of Darkness, even if he had strength comparable to a deity, would not be able to truly establish himself in the universe. If a deity knows that teacher has such a treasure, they will definitely set their sights on it. The universe is a big hunting ground. The strong are respected. Exhaling lightly, Lin Feng understood. If it was not because of the Great Wall, then it was very likely that it was because of an enemy. His teacher's enemy was most likely a deity. After all, his teacher was an ultimate powerhouse like the Master of Darkness. Don't worry, teacher. No matter what happened, I will definitely seek justice for you. A teacher for a day, a teacher for life. His teacher, the true dragon sovereign, had been kind to him. Now that he had the ability, he would naturally do his best to repay him. However, after 1 billion years, it was unknown whether his teacher's enemy was still alive. You should be the clearest about this. Back then, Ho refused to tell me. Now he should not hide it anymore. Lin Feng's figure flashed and stood in the true dragon black region. Looking at the boundless darkness and endless void, this was also a huge black hole world. However, it was incomparable to the Milky Way super black hole. His aura spread out and countless experts could sense it. In the past 10,000 years, his teacher's lineage had spread out and had many disciples. Whoosh! Lin Feng's eyes sharpened as a powerful aura instantly erupted and swept out like raging waves, boundless and boundless. Currently, Lin Feng's life rating alone had already reached the peak of the deity level. With his perfect chaotic body, His combat strength was even more formidable to the extreme, enough to be comparable to a heavenly god expert. Even Ho, who could look down on Lin Feng back then, could only look up to him now. The true Dragon Black region was very lively. There were tens of thousands of true dragon sovereigns, and every one of them was a dragon among men. Even though the true dragon sovereign had accumulated many treasures, they had all been taken away. However, Lin Feng's true dragon avatar had been in seclusion in the true Dragon Black region, so the true dragon sovereign's lineage did not lack treasures. The 3 tests that had stumped a large number of disciples back then only existed in name. After Lin Feng, the average strength, cells, and genes of the Huaxia overlords had been steadily strengthened. It was easy for them to become a nebula-level overlord, so the 3 tests were nothing. Later, Lin Feng changed the tests to train the quality of one's will and see one's true nature. In the past 10,000 years, there had been a large number of disciples who had passed the 3 tribulations and 3 lives path and received the Master's gift to travel the universe. For example, Xiang Yu, Wu Yu, and Wang Junwu, who had joined after Lin Feng, had already entered the Milky Way. Currently, she was in charge of managing the true Dragon Black domain. As the successor, she was the junior martial sister Jun Hua, who was ranked 10860. Senior sister, is 8th senior brother really that powerful? Yes, 8th senior brother was already a black hole overlord a few 100 million years ago. Now, his strength is unfathomable. Wow, a black hole overlord? When will I be so powerful that I can travel the universe? Dummy, stop dreaming. How can you travel the universe? Pass the 3 tribulations and 3 lives path first. You're biting off more than you can chew. Pfft, the 3 tribulations and 3 lives path is nothing. I'll definitely pass it in a few 100 years. A group of junior brothers and sisters gathered around Jun Hua and chattered. As the successor, Jun Hua had a smile on her face. Like a big sister next door, she patiently answered every question without the slightest bit of impatience. Those who could become the successor were all experts carefully selected by Jun Hua. They were the best among the disciples in terms of strength and character. After all, it was different now. There were too many disciples to choose from under the true Dragon Lord. Then, senior sister, is 8th senior brother the strongest in our sect? Jun Hua paused for a moment and shook her head. 10,000 years ago, 8th senior brother was indeed the strongest. But now, I don't think so. The disciples were in an uproar. No way, 8th senior brother has cultivated for 1 billion years. Who can be better than him? Yeah, 18th senior brother after 8th senior brother has cultivated for tens of thousands of years, right? The difference is too big. Their cultivation time can't be compared. Senior sister, you're not mistaken. Is there really someone stronger than 8th senior brother? Jun Hua nodded. Just as he was about to speak, an enormous aura suddenly descended like the shaking of the heavens. Chapter 2267. A terrifying aura swept over the entire sacred site. The county pet and the junior disciples were completely stunned. That powerful aura was even more intimidating to them than chi. It was as if a god had descended and was unstoppable. Even moving was wishful thinking. What kind of power was this? How could there be such a powerful force in the great wall of the sacred site? Their shocked faces were filled with confusion. They were like flowers in a storm that could be destroyed at any time. However, that force did not have any hostility. It was like a giant dragon roaming past and quickly disappeared. Oh my God! Senior sister, what just happened? What kind of power is that? It's too terrifying. The stunned disciples looked at the county pet, but as the successor, the county pet was not any better. Her delicate face was filled with shock as she muttered, I don't know either. At the center of the sacred site, Lin Feng stood tall. The tyrannical aura constructed a layer of invisible barrier, and the pressure was astonishing. Looking up at the void, the clouds were strange and treacherous. The thick darkness revealed a dragon's head, and it was exactly the same as the dragon in Eastern mythology. The void fluctuated violently as the dragon's body appeared. It was incomparably huge and had an equally shocking aura. However, compared to the current Lin Feng, it was undoubtedly insignificant. Qi Lin Feng looked up. This was the first time Qi had revealed its true body. At least, it was the first time in front of him. In the past 10,000 years, his true dragon avatar had conversed with Qi many times, but it was the first time they had met like this. Lin Feng. Qi looked down, his green eyes flashing with a strange luster. You're back. His voice was low and magnetic as it reverberated. Although his strength was far from Lin Feng's, it did not affect Qi's aura and pressure. This was because he was a spirit born from the Great Wall of the Great Wall and could borrow its power to a certain extent. Simply put, his soul level was very high, but his strength was still weak. After all, a spirit was just a spirit. Its upper limit was not high. To the Lin Feng back then, Qi was like a giant that could not be resisted. However, to the current Lin Feng, his strength was on a completely different level. Yes, I'm back. Lin Feng smiled calmly. To him, Ho was both a teacher and a friend. In addition, they had often interacted over the past 10,000 years, so their relationship was quite good. The reason why he directly used his power to awaken Rhesus was because it was more direct and would save a lot of unnecessary statements. Even though Qi's cultivation talent wasn't high, he had lived for so many eras and had once roamed the universe with his teacher. His knowledge and experience were extremely profound. Your strength really surprises me. For the first time, Yu's voice contained emotion. It sounded like he was surprised, but at the same time, it sounded like he was lamenting. I'm also very surprised. Lin Feng smiled. One man and one dragon stared at each other. There was no need for words as both of them already understood each other's thoughts. I won't beat around the bush. I have two things to tell you, Lin Feng said directly. First, tell me, is there a way to save the Milky Way? How? Secondly, how did Teacher die? Who killed Teacher? How strong is he? He stood upright and said confidently. Lin Feng looked straight at Ho. Now, he had enough confidence and strength to get straight to the point. The atmosphere fell into silence. Ho seemed to be hesitating, but also seemed to be recalling and thinking. Lin Feng wasn't in a hurry. He quietly waited for the answer. He knew very well that Rhesus would definitely say it, because he missed his master very much. Even though hundreds of millions of years had passed, Rhesus still only had his teacher as his master in his heart. He would do anything to fulfill his teacher's wishes. The bond of their souls was inseparable in life and death. It's been a long time. Rhesus's voice was faint, as if he was recalling ancient memories and was immersed in his thoughts. Qi's voice gradually deepened, and its calm tone turned heavy, carrying sadness, pain, and hatred. Even after hundreds of millions of years, it hadn't diminished. It was just that Rhesus had always suppressed it deep in his soul. At this moment, it was all released. As he spoke, Lin Feng listened attentively. He stood quietly without interrupting once. He also wanted to know about his teacher's past, what happened, and everything. As expected, after listening to Rhesus's narration, Lin Feng finally understood. So, this is Yunxin Cosmic Nation. Xingfeng Astral is one of the cosmic nations. Teacher Ho was an ordinary cosmic adventurer in Yunxin Cosmic Nation. The surface area of a cosmic nation was quite large. If it was small, there would be dozens of galactic clusters. If it was large, there would be thousands of galactic clusters. It was boundless, and planets and stars only occupied a small part of it. Most of it was the endless cosmos. More than 95% of the cosmic nation's area was unexplored. Therefore, there would be many cosmic adventurers in every cosmic nation. They rode in spaceships and explored everywhere. They were either looking for precious planets with life or natural wonders in the universe. They were also looking for the existence of black holes. A true powerhouse grew through blood and battle. Therefore, there were quite a lot of cosmic adventurers. They knew very well that if they couldn't surpass the limit, they were destined to die. Since that was the case, there was no difference between dying early and dying late. They might as well give it their all. Teacher True Dragon Sovereign was one of them. He had no background, no backing. He could only rely on himself to climb up step by step. Because of his extraordinary talent, shocking perception, and proficiency in battle, True Dragon Sovereign's strength rose very quickly. He had also made many good brothers who had gone through life and death with him. Mad King Chiwuming, Ancient Godly Beast Fire Monkey King, Demon God Li Shi, and the extremely intelligent Lve. Birds of a feather flocked together. The people the true dragon monarch knew were naturally the strongest of the strongest. Among them there were deities, masters of the dark region, and others with great battle prowess. There were also those who were extremely intelligent. They roamed the universe together. They lived and died together. Until he accidentally entered the Cloudy Stream secret realm. The extremely intelligent Lve was trapped in the secret area. His life and death are unknown. The ancient godly beast Fire Monkey King had the closest relationship with Teacher. Together they obtained a super opportunity, Chaos Treasure Great Wall. A paragon-level treasure. Lin Feng sighed. There was a price for betrayal. When the price was so high that it angered both man and God, even the best of brothers could be blinded by profit. An ultimate powerhouse like the Dark Domain Master had obtained a Chaos Treasure. That was a treasure that even paragons coveted. How could a godly-level powerhouse not go crazy after seeing it? Even the most ordinary Chaos Treasure was worth enough to shock an astral boundary. People die for wealth, birds die for food. It's been the same since ancient times. Lin Feng sighed. The ancient godly beast Fire Monkey King was killed by a sneak attack. Teacher escaped with serious injuries, leaving a chance for survival. Mad King Chiwuming, Demon God Li Shi, Lin Feng said softly. A sharp light shot out from his eyes. So, they were the ones who killed Teacher. Chapter 2268. As a universe adventurer, he had to do his best to climb up. Wild King Chi Wu Ming and demonic god Li Shi, one of them was from the monster clan and the other was from the demon clan. If you asked them to talk about brotherhood, they could call each other brothers. However, once something big happened, it would be different. It was the same for humans, because this was no longer a test of personality, but of humanity. Teacher is too kind and trusting too easily. Lin Feng sighed in his heart. No matter how good a friend was, they could betray you and destroy morality for profit. This was not uncommon. It's because of this Chaos Treasure. Lin Feng clicked his tongue. For a Black Region Master, even if he had God-level strength, getting a top-tier true treasure was already a great fortune. If he could get a pinnacle true treasure, he would be even luckier. If he got a Heavenly Path true treasure, he would be extremely lucky. But getting a Chaos Treasure, it was like a child getting a peerless sword. Not only was it not great luck, but it was also a disaster because he had no ability to protect it. If even a knight coveted a treasure, even a sky god or god master would not be able to keep it, let alone a Black Region Master. It was too dangerous. I don't know if they're still alive, Lin Feng said softly. The mortality rate of universe adventurers was very high. Betrayal for wealth was a small matter. Adventuring in the universe could be dangerous at any moment, especially in black holes and secret realms, which could kill without batting an eye. They're like master, elites among universe adventurers, and they have strong life-saving abilities, Qing said slowly. He did not know either. After all, he was just a soul without a physical body, and could not control the Great Wall. Even if his soul strength could spread out of the solar system, he could not even cover the tip of the Milky Way, let alone the entire Yunshin cosmic nation. But if you find your eighth brother, You should have an answer, Qing said. Lin Feng nodded. Eighth brother had left through the true Dragon Black region that day, not to the Milky Way, but to the endless universe. After all, the Milky Way's level of strength was no challenge to him. Mad King Qi Wuming and Demon God Li Shi are both elites like teacher. They're extremely talented. 1,000,000,000 years have passed. If he didn't die, his strength would have already reached his limit, or even broken through it. Lin Feng knew very well that such experts usually had a very high upper limit, especially when they were unscrupulous and had extremely strong life-saving abilities. Time didn't represent everything. Some people cultivated for tens of thousands of years, but they might not be as powerful as some experts who cultivated for more than 10 years. Because of the limit of talent, every expert had their own barriers. When one reached the stronghold's shackles, no matter how much time one had, it would all be in vain. It's very likely that he's a peak heavenly god or even stronger. Lin Feng analyzed carefully. Based on what he knew of his teacher's talent and aptitude, if his teacher was given enough time, there was an extremely high possibility that he could become a heavenly god expert. He had reached the peak of heavenly god and stood at the top of Yunxin Cosmic Nation. If his teacher could do it, then Mad King Qi Wuming and Demon God Li Shi could do it as well. My life level will soon rise and I'll become a heavenly god. By then, my foundation will be stable and I'll have the perfect chaotic body. There will be a period of improvement in a short period of time. My battle prowess will reach the peak of the heavenly god realm. With enough time, his battle prowess can even reach the level of a divine master. Lin Feng had a thorough understanding of his own situation. Especially now that he had perfectly merged with the wandering planet, it was a blessing in disguise. This was also the reason why he was so confident. Since he said it, he would definitely do it. He would avenge his teacher, the true dragon sovereign. Don't worry. It won't be too late to take revenge when you're fully confident. Although Qi's voice was calm, there was a trace of rare concern. Qi was very satisfied with the most outstanding disciple of the true dragon bloodline. After all, he had seen Lin Feng's growth. He knew that as long as Lin Feng kept improving, revenge was just a trivial matter. More importantly, in time, the true dragon bloodline would definitely be carried forward and become famous. This was the greatest wish of his master, the true dragon sovereign. However, Qi also knew very well that the most important thing for Lin Feng now was not revenge, but saving the Milky Way. It was just like how he had sacrificed his life to save Earth that day. Lin Feng had a very strong sense of responsibility. Lin Feng, you should know that the Milky Way super black hole is a naturally formed black hole, and it's not an ordinary black hole. Qi's voice was deep and slightly hesitant. He knew that some things were cruel, but he did not want to lie to Lin Feng. Lin Feng nodded. Naturally formed black holes came in different sizes. Some were small, some were ordinary, and some were huge. The Milky Way super black hole was undoubtedly the best among them. It was the top black hole. It's very difficult to save a Milky Way super black hole at the end of its decline. When I followed my master to explore the universe, I obtained many books, but they were only limited to the Yunxin Cosmic Nation. I didn't have much contact with the astral world and venerables. As far as I know, even an ordinary venerable would be powerless to save a super black hole at the end of its decline. However, with the strength of a venerable, it's enough to withstand the most terrifying collapse and explosion of a super black hole. Venerable, distant and powerful. Lin Feng knew a few. One of them was Yuan's grandfather, a super life form bred by the 10,000 origin mustard stone countless eras ago, Yuan Venerable. However, even such a powerhouse would be powerless in the face of the vast and boundless universe. An ordinary venerable already has the strength to withstand the explosion of a super black hole. If it was Ancestor Wan Qian, he would definitely know how to save the Milky Way super black hole. What a pity! Lin Feng knew that it was impossible. Ancestor Wan Qian was probably already dead. The universe was so vast that one could not see the end. There was always someone better. If you want to save the Milky Way superblack hole, you have to find the Lord of Yunshin Cosmic Nation. Only then will you have a chance of survival. Qi said in a deep voice, with my experience and knowledge, I can't think of any way. I'm sorry. An apology was enough to express Qi's feelings. He also wanted to help Lin Feng, but he was not as good as Lin Feng in all aspects. He could not help even if he wanted to. The Lord of Yunshin Cosmic Nation. Lin Feng nodded gently. Qi was right. He did not have many connections, but the Lord of Yunshin Cosmic Nation was different. He was in charge of countless galaxy clusters and had a powerful backer behind him. More importantly, he was the Lord of a cosmic nation. How vast was his knowledge? There must be a way. Thank you, Qi. Lin Feng thanked him. He frowned slightly. He already had some ideas in his mind, but he was not sure. He could go find the Lord of Yunshin Cosmic Nation, but the problem was, would he have enough time? Qi, do you know how long until the Milky Way superblack hole? Lin Feng looked up. 470 years. Qi's voice was heavy and cruel. Chapter 2269. 470 years. For a martial artist, this was the blink of an eye. For the current Lin Feng, a shallow level of seclusion would take him at least 1,000 years. For a deeper level of seclusion, it would take him an unknown amount of time. And this was even taking into account Lin Feng's aptitude and perception. For other masters of the same level, it might take more than 100,000 years to comprehend a small realm. For the comprehension of the heavenly path, it might take millions or even tens of millions of years. 470 years was just a blink of an eye. It's only a short time. Although Lin Feng had been mentally prepared, he was still slightly shocked. After returning from the wandering planet, he had calculated the time and had a rough estimate in his heart, which was within 1,000 years. The current situation was more serious, but Lin Feng knew that Qi would not be wrong because it was the soul of the treasure of the chaos. In this aspect, even now that he had merged with the wandering planet, he could not compare with Qi because they were fundamentally different, just as Qi could never catch up with him in terms of cultivation method. You don't seem to be worried. Qi was a little curious. Based on the Lin Feng he knew, if he was not confident, he would have been anxious. After all, Earth, the Milky Way territory, and even the entire Milky Way occupied a very important position in Lin Feng's heart. Lin Feng lightly nodded his head. He did have a backup plan, which was to move the entire Milky Way directly into the wandering planet. It might not be possible to move all the planets, but it was more than enough to move a Milky Way territory. As for the life in the Milky Way, it was even simpler. The strongest was only at the black hole level, and it would not affect the operation of the supreme rules of the wandering planet at all. At the cosmic level, the wandering planet was also born from the chaos of the universe and belonged to the same kind of life form as the black hole, but of a higher level. In that case, I'm relieved. Qi did not press Lin Feng. For him, whether the Milky Way was destroyed or not was not a concern at all. He had followed the Lord of the True Dragon in the universe and had seen how many black holes were destroyed, galaxy clusters exploded and fell, and the rise and fall of life. He had seen too much. The rise and fall of fate, and the reincarnation of life and death were the principles of the universe. I don't want to take that path unless I have no other choice. Lin Feng shook his head and looked at Zhuai. Senior, do you have a way to delay the destruction of the galactic super black hole? Although Lin Feng's strength had long since surpassed Hui's, Hui was like a teacher to him, so he was still respectful and modest. Delay. Hui was slightly stunned and fell into a short period of silence. The atmosphere was suffocating. I can't do it. Bai was silent for a long time before he replied. Although the true dragon black domain is a black hole, it is not innate. It is formed after birth. Even if its energy is fed to the Milky Way super-black hole, it is only a drop in the ocean. The difference between the two is too great. A super-black hole in the Milky Way that has entered the last phase of its decline is no longer self-sufficient and can no longer be recycled. Therefore, the energy it requires is at least 10,000 times more than that of a normal super-black hole. Lin Feng frowned. It knew that such a request was indeed somewhat difficult for it, which was why it had remained silent for so long. Although the true Dragon Black Domain had energy, it also had life. To him, the Milky Way was his hometown, a territory he wanted to protect. To Hui, the true Dragon Black Domain was also something he wanted to protect. After all, it was left behind by his teacher, the true Dragon Lord, and Hui had watched it grow bit by bit. Moreover, he believed that Hui did not lie to him. Even if it swallowed the entire true Dragon Black Domain, it would only delay the lifespan of the Milky Way super-black hole by a few decades or a few hundred years, but the price was the entire true Dragon Black Domain. The difference in energy between the two was too great. Thinking about it carefully, it was indeed not worth it. 10,000 times the energy. Lin Feng suddenly thought of what Hui had just said and fell into deep thought. If the true Dragon Black Domain could not afford it, what about other things? For example, a wandering planet? The life level of a wandering planet is above that of the true Dragon Black Domain, and it has inexhaustible space energy. Its ability to absorb external energy is also extremely strong. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. Not only the life level, but the energy level is also far above that of the true Dragon Black Domain. One is ordinary spirit chi. The other is incomparably pure spirit chi, which is the space energy of the heaven rank laws. What if the space energy absorbed and transformed by the wandering planet is given to the Milky Way super-black hole to absorb and devour? Lin Feng's mind spun rapidly, and the more he thought about it, the more shocked he was. After careful consideration, all aspects were consistent, and it was completely possible. In short, it was conversion. The food of one side was given to the other side to eat, and the nutrients of one side were given to the other side to prolong its life. For a wandering planet, because it was a stable celestial body, it was self-sufficient and had complete supreme laws and cycles, so even if there was not enough space energy in a short period of time, there would not be any qualitative change. At most, the life on the wandering planet would slow down or even stop growing, and the celestial body would not be able to appear, so the growth would be delayed. The thinning of the space energy would greatly reduce the cultivation speed of the experts on the wandering planet, but it would not affect its essence. It was equivalent to a scale, equalizing both sides. Lin Feng nodded secretly. Because he had now merged with the wandering planet, he knew best and had complete control, enough to change the supreme laws and mediate and use the wandering planet. It was feasible. It was like giving 90% of his food to the dying in the desert. Although he could not eat his fill, at least he could save people. If I can prolong the life of the Milky Way super-black hole, then I can leave and go to Yunshin Cosmic Nation to find a way to save it. Delaying was a delaying tactic, treating the symptoms but not the root cause. The real root cause was in Yunshin Cosmic Nation, or even the higher Xingfeng astral boundary. As long as there was enough time, there would be more possibilities. There's hope. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and then he told Qi his thoughts. Qi was an absolute expert in this regard, and his calculation accuracy was far higher than his. Wandering planet. Fusion control. Even though Qi was experienced and had long been calm, he was still shocked. This was definitely a top opportunity in the vast thousand universes. With the perfect chaotic body, Lin Feng would automatically absorb the energy of the universe to grow even if he did not actively cultivate. As long as he worked a little harder, becoming a venerable was just around the corner. What Qi did not know was that Lin Feng's opportunities were far more than that. The ancestors' cultivation method of the Thousand Heaven Path pointed to the limits of the universe, and the 1000-origin mustard stone was a soul treasure born from chaos. In addition to the mutation of his bloodline, the black vortex that combined the path of space and time, the current Lin Feng was like a huge treasure trove, waiting for a key to open it, and it would emit endless light. In time, it would shock Xingfeng astral boundary, and even the entire universe. Chapter 2270. In the Great Wall of the Great Wall. Is it possible? Not enough. Is it possible now? Still not enough. Lin Feng and Hui were conducting experiments again and again to delay the destruction of the galactic super black hole. Although Hui's perception in this area was very strong, many of them were just theories. When it came to the level of energy, it was very delicate. Especially now, the lifespan of the galactic super black hole was only 470 years. After 20 years of debugging, only 450 years were left. These 450 years included the final frenzied destruction, not just the period of decline. According to Hui, there might still be a possibility of saving it during the decline period. It was like a patient with a terminal illness. This planet could not cure it, but it might not be a terminal illness on other planet. Once it entered the final destruction period, there was only a theoretical possibility. The beginning of the destruction period was about the last 360 years. In other words, the decline period was less than 100 years. For a black hole with a lifespan of hundreds of millions, 100 years was just a breath's time. How is it now, Hui? Lin Feng was a little nervous. The continuous experiments continued to consume the energy of the wandering planet, from 50% to 70%, 90%. Now it was 100%. In other words, the energy absorbed and converted by the wandering planet was basically all supplied to the galactic super black hole. Only the most basic circulating energy was left to maintain the operation of the wandering planet. However, it was worth it. The wandering planet was just temporarily slowing down its growth and sacrificing a little time. For it, which was also hundreds of millions of years old, this time was just like a nap and hibernation. The decline has almost stopped, Hui's voice came calmly. Almost. Lin Feng took a deep breath. So, what is the rate of decline now? Almost 1,200 times, Hui replied. Lin Feng thought for a while. In other words, 90 years is more than 100,000 years. In theory, yes, Hui said, but the decline of the innate black hole is the law of the universe. Even if it is delayed, I'm afraid it might not be endless. There may be changes at any time. Lin Feng, you have to be mentally prepared. I understand. Lin Feng nodded. Right now, he was going against the heavens and touching the supreme law of the universe. But for the time being, there was no other way. Many things can happen in 100,000 years. Lin Feng was very confident. He had only been born for less than 10,000 years, and he already had such strength. In another 100,000 years, he would probably become a venerable one. After entering Yun Xian Cosmic Nation, there would be many variables. Perhaps he could find another way? However, just as Dusk had said, this was only an ideal situation. The supreme law of the universe would probably stop it. The decline of the galactic super black hole could change at any time, and it would enter the period of destruction earlier. I hope we don't have to take the last step. Lin Feng didn't want to move the Milky Way to a wandering planet unless he was forced into a desperate situation. As long as it was within his power, he still hoped to preserve the Milky Way. After all, this was his hometown, the place where he was born and raised. Milky Way super black hole. Endless tearing and devouring. The energy stored in endless eras was slowly being devoured by the Milky Way super black hole, turning into its own energy to prolong its decline. This was a kind of self-instinct. At this moment, in this endless darkness, 4 figures merged into one and continuously teleported, shuttling through the endless darkness. It was the West Eel Mercenary Corps that had forced their way into the Milky Way super black hole. Leader West Eel, Vice Leader North Shark, third sister Dongming, and fourth brother South Shark. Among them, Leader West Eel was the strongest as he had already crossed the threshold of Upper Heaven God. Vice Leader North Shark and fourth brother South Shark were both Middle Heaven gods. Third sister Dongming was the weakest as she was at the limit of Lower Heaven God. Although they used spaceships to enter the Milky Way super black hole, they had to teleport after entering. This was because in the depths of the Milky Way super black hole, spaceships couldn't enter the dark matter space, nor could they accelerate. It was impossible to rely on spaceships to pass through the Milky Way super black hole. It was too slow. For the vast universe, the speed of light was actually not fast. The reason why they used spaceships to enter the Milky Way super black hole was more to protect themselves and have an extra layer of protection. After all, the West Eel Mercenary Corps wasn't sure if this was a naturally formed black hole or an acquired black hole. An acquired black hole was the inner world of a fallen elite. It was very likely that the remnant consciousness would brutally attack and destroy everything. Its devouring power was also much stronger than a naturally formed universe black hole. The strongest could even obliterate an almighty elite. This was also the reason why demon god Li Shi didn't enter. In the universe, only by being careful enough could one live long enough. Even if the risk was less than 10%, demon god Li Shi wasn't willing to take the risk. Once it became a habit, it would be troublesome. Even if the risk was only 1% each time, there wouldn't be a problem 10 times. But what about 100 times or 1,000 times? How could one not wet their shoes if they walked by the river often? But occasionally, the success rate of winning the gamble was still relatively high, just like the West Eel Mercenary Corps. Although they were still not sure if this was a naturally formed black hole or an elite's inner world, they were already deep inside. Moreover, the devouring power was within their tolerance range. Although the devouring power of the Milky Way super black hole had increased greatly, the 4 members of the West Eel Mercenary Corps were not mediocre people. They weren't ordinary god-level elites, but heavenly god elite. In terms of the 4 levels of god-level elites, ordinary gods, deities, heavenly gods, and almighty, they were the 3rd level. It was enough to withstand the devouring power of the Milky Way super black hole for a long time. But there was always a possibility. Once they got lost in the black hole, they would be in big trouble. The direction is right. We should be out soon. Captain West Eel was experienced. He wasn't an ordinary mercenary. Even though the black hole did not have any coordinates, and the devouring power affected his soul and judgment, he remained calm. That's right. Other than Captain West Eel, Vice Captain North Shark nodded too. Both of them were relatively experienced. East Shark and South Shark were slightly lost. But it did not matter since the captain and vice captain were leading the way. There was no need for them to worry. The eyes of the two were flashing. They were eager to try. A black hole in the final stage of its decline would usually contain many treasures. Even if they could not get the black hole chaotic origin heart, they could still reap great rewards. Such examples could be found everywhere. Many experts had obtained treasures that were more valuable than the black hole chaotic origin heart. It was even possible for them to obtain treasures that were 10 times or 100 times more valuable. Of course, it all depended on luck. It's been a long time since I last killed. South Shark licked his dried lips. He revealed a blazing, killing intent. Jia Jia. Hurry up and reach. I can't wait any longer. Moans, destruction, blood, and complete destruction. Jia Jia Jia. Wanton laughter reverberated in the empty black hole. Chapter 2271. Oh! A heavenly god expert, an outsider? Within the Saint Ruins, Lin Feng was instructing and discussing the Tao with all the disciples of the junior generation when he suddenly stood up, and the imperceptible imposing aura he emanated caused Junhua and the other junior brothers and sisters to be unable to help but retreat while revealing shocked and heavy expressions. What happened to 32nd senior brother? I don't know. What a powerful aura. That's right. Senior brother's aura gives me a feeling that it is even more frightening than Ho. All the junior brothers and sisters looked at Lin Feng with admiration and reverence. This was the 32nd senior brother, that senior sister princess you mentioned, the one who might be stronger than 8th senior brother. Initially, they thought that such a senior brother would be cold and overbearing, arrogant and prideful. Who would have thought that he would be so amiable and approachable? Not only did he chat with them, telling them stories about the Milky Way galaxy, he even guided them in their cultivation and hit the nail on the head. He even gave them many incomparably precious treasures. What could make such a senior brother so serious? Shua. Lin Feng's aura came and left quickly. It's fine. Everyone, continue cultivating. I'll be back soon. Lin Feng chuckled as he said to the crowd. His figure flashed and soon disappeared, causing the crowd to speculate. It should be a small matter. MN 32nd senior brother smiled just now. Didn't senior sister princess you say that 32nd senior brother is already unparalleled in the Milky Way galaxy? What other matters could trouble him? That's right. Let's not worry too much. Let's hurry up and cultivate. If those senior brothers and sisters who passed the 3 tribulations and 3 lives path knew that 32nd senior brother had returned and given us so many good things, I reckon their intestines would break from regret. That's right, haha. After bidding farewell, Lin Feng directly left. From Earth to the Milky Way territory and then to the Milky Way galaxy to the reverse wave planet, this path was too familiar. There was no need for a cosmos ship. Given Lin Feng's current teleportation speed, a cosmos ship could not catch up to him. Indeed, it still attracted some spies. Lin Feng also knew that there would definitely be experts spying outside the Milky Way super black hole, waiting for it to explode and obtain the black hole chaotic origin heart. Although Yun Xian Cosmic Nation was huge, no matter how many unexplored areas there were, it could not withstand the endless exploration of the universe explorers. In addition, the black hole was so eye-catching that it wouldn't be difficult to find it as long as one reached its approximate location. However, he did not expect that there would be an expert who would take the risk to enter. Since he's so desperate, it means that there's an even stronger expert watching from the outside. This wasn't hard to guess. If it wasn't for this, why would they take the risk and enter the black hole of the declining period? I don't know if their luck is good or bad. They just happened to be near a wandering planet. Lin Feng had fused with the wandering planet, so his comprehension was naturally clear. The wandering planet was located in the core area of the Milky Way super black hole, supplying energy. How strong was the aura of a heavenly god powerhouse? In addition, now that they were in the Milky Way super black hole, most of the energy had been devoured, making it even more obvious. Based on the direction they're heading, they should be able to find a wandering planet. I have to speed up. Whoosh, whoosh. Lin Feng's expression turned serious. Once these celestial gods were far away from the wandering planet, he would not be able to sense their location. After that, when he entered the Milky Way, it would definitely cause chaos. Now that the Milky Way super black hole had just stabilized, any change could affect the entire situation and cause a lot of trouble. Therefore, he had to resolve the unstable factors as soon as possible. Whoosh, whoosh. Under the guidance of their leader, West Eel, the 4 of them had completely entered the Milky Way super black hole and were approaching the wandering planet step by step. This is? West Eel, who was teleporting, suddenly felt shock. He opened his mouth slightly in disbelief. What's wrong, big brother? East Shark asked curiously. Treasure? North Shark clenched his fist. West Eel's expression kept changing. His narrowed eyes shot out a ray of light, and his voice carried a trace of uncontrollable joy. Brothers, follow me. Good stuff. East Shark, North Shark, and South Shark naturally knew what the change in their leader's expression meant. They had experienced life and death together, so they knew each other very well. They teleported continuously and quickly approached their target. At this time, not only West Eel, North Shark, South Shark, and East Shark were all surprised. Their breathing became more and more rapid because they knew very well where they were. The core area of the Milky Way super black hole. There was no way a planet could exist there. But if it existed, it would definitely be something incredible. West Eel took in a deep breath. He widened his eyes as he stared at the wandering planet in front of him. He was speechless. He did not expect that he would find a legendary wandering planet here. It was a wandering planet that absorbed spatial energy. That was how it got its name. According to legends, there were even 6 heavenly fate reincarnations within the wandering planet. Anyone who could get through it would become the master of the wandering planet. What kind of opportunity was this? We are rich. We are rich. Even the vice leader North Shark, who usually did not smile and did not show his emotions on his face, could not help sighing. He could not control his excitement. Indeed, they could not use a wandering planet. But many experts in Xin Cosmos Nation liked it because they could nurture their disciples and elite descendant. Its price was even comparable to the black hole chaotic origin heart. Of course, this depended on the grade of the wandering planet and the black hole chaotic origin heart. But for it to be comparable to the black hole chaotic origin heart, one could see the value of a wandering planet. Boss, we are so lucky. South Shark laughed wildly. That demonic godly sure thinks he is smart. He did not know that there is a wandering planet in this black hole. After earning this sum, this servant wants to buy a few hundred young and strong men and have fun. East Shark's dark red tongue stuck out like a venomous snake. Her red eyes seemed to have dyed her long hair red. Her full chest was moving up and down rapidly. She was truly crazy. Wait a minute. Something is not right. West Eel, who discovered it first, had a change in expression. It is mentioned in the ancient books that wandering planets love to absorb spatial energy. But there is no reason for them to be in a black hole that is close to the destruction period. Without any energy to absorb, the wandering planet should have left. How could it? West Eel muttered to himself. His mind was spinning rapidly. His expression changed. Beads of sweat seeped out. He felt uneasy. North Shark and the other 2 felt their hearts thumping. They felt that something was about to happen. Let's go. West Eel was decisive. He ordered, let's leave this place first. There is no need for us to enter and explore. Leaving safely is the most important thing. We can earn a huge sum by selling this information. North Shark and the other 2 stiffened their expressions as they nodded. Being mercenaries, they were naturally experienced. They understood that some money was not easy to earn. Schwa! Just as they were about to teleport, the surrounding spatial energy suddenly dissipated. It was as if it was sealed. A terrifying energy spread out from the wandering planet like a spider web, enveloping the entire West Eel mercenary group. Thinking of leaving? A calm voice reverberated across the super black hole. Chapter 2272. In the space domain, all is empty. Lines of exquisite engravings shone as the space law array surrounded it. The surrounding space elements did not move, but the space domain, all is empty, was gradually heating up and releasing endless power. With the black whirlpool as the source, it had the endless space energy of a wandering planet. Lin Feng appeared in the space domain and looked at the 4 specially dressed heaven god great beings. Obviously, they came from Yunxin Cosmic Nation through the Milky Way super black hole. No matter how mutated the great beings in the Milky Way were, they were only black zone masters and had not stepped into the god level. A pinnacle true treasure. West Eel's face turned serious. Meeting an enemy in a black hole was not something to be happy about, even if the enemy's aura was only at the peak of god level. He seems to know about us. Is he alone? Deputy Captain Shark North looked around cautiously, but the powerful domain of the pinnacle true treasure, eternal emptiness, restricted their aura sensing. East Shark licked her lips with her bright red tongue and squinted her red eyes. South Shark snorted and looked up arrogantly. He was just a little guy at the pinnacle of the god spirit realm. Who did he think he was? Thousands of people had died in his hands. Who are you? North Shark asked in a low voice. Who are you? Lin Feng was not in a hurry after setting up all is empty. Both sides were testing each other and wanted to know. We are Yunshin Cosmic Nation's 3-star mercenary group, West Eel Mercenary Group. West Eel smiled. He was experienced and did not hit a smiling face. Hello, I am the leader, West Eel. Milky Way Horde leader, Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked at the four and said, This is my territory. Every black zone master had the ability to control and rule a black zone, which was a black hole area, as their private territory. Your territory? Dong Yu giggled. We haven't seen any records of the universe outside. Third sister. West Eel frowned and shouted in a deep voice. In an instant, Dong Ming curled her lips and dared not say anything. West Eel cupped his hands slightly. May I know which force the Milky Way Horde leader belongs to, or which expert's disciple is he? In Yunshin Cosmic Nation, it was not difficult to control a black domain. As long as you found a black domain, registered it in Yun Xian Cosmic Nation, and paid a fee, you could claim it as your private territory and be protected by Yun Xian Cosmic Nation. However, the fee was determined by the black domain itself. If it was an innate super black hole like the Milky Way super black hole, its price would not be a joke. In fact, most of the dark zones were not registered. They were considered private territories, just like Pinnacle True Treasures or Heavenly Path True Treasures. They did not need to be explained to anyone. If one had the ability and strength, they could come and snatch them. After all, black holes were often located in very remote areas and were difficult to find. However, such black holes were usually surrounded by huge arrays and large universe stations. There would also be great beings guarding them. If anyone tried to force their way in, they would be treated as enemies and would fight to the death. Most people wouldn't force their way in if they didn't know the details. However, Lin Feng had never left the Milky Way, so he could not build any universe stations. At this time, there was nothing outside the Milky Way super black hole. It was as if there was no master, so it attracted the attention of many great beings. No one dared to force their way in. This was because such black holes usually had masters. However, the Milky Way super black hole did not have a master until the end of its life. This made people even more fearful. No one knew what kind of horrible existence was inside. Only me, Lin Feng answered indifferently with his hands behind his back. Only one person? The West Eel was stunned. Even the deputy team leader, Shark North, was stunned. The Southern Mermaid laughed arrogantly with a look of disdain. You think you can defend a black domain? I can kill you easily. Is that so? Lin Feng glanced around. There are only 4 of you. I'm afraid it's not enough. He smiled lightly and said provocatively. The Southern Mermaid was furious. What did you say, boy? Call your other helpers over. Lin Feng looked at the Southern Mermaid. Damn it. The Southern Mermaid took out a giant blade and was furious. She was like a dragon coming out of the sea. She was unstoppable and went straight for Lin Feng. The deputy team leader, Shark North, shouted, Fourth brother, don't. The team leader, the West Eel's eyes flashed and he did not say anything. The third sister, Dong Ming, sneered. She played with her fingertips and blinked her red eyelashes. She was indifferent. However, in the next moment their expressions changed. Clang! A light flashed in Lin Feng's hand and the black snake appeared. Endless power roared out. It had been a long time since he had a real battle. Lin Feng, who was standing still, suddenly released his power. Swish! He turned into a flash of lightning and went straight for the Southern Mermaid. The life level of a peak god-level expert instantly released a power that was far beyond the Southern Mermaid's. The world changed color and the terrifying power suppressed the Southern Mermaid. It split the giant blade and hit the armor in front of its chest. Boom! The Southern Mermaid spat out blood and was defeated. West Eel and Shark North widened their eyes in shock. They did not expect the human youth in front of them to be so strong. He was only a peak god-level expert, but he defeated the middle-level Southern Mermaid with one move. Swish! Shark North caught it and heaved a sigh of relief. The Southern Mermaid was only slightly injured. He looked at Lin Feng and was shocked. Another pinnacle true treasure. 2 pinnacle true treasures. The West Eel mercenary group had 4 heaven god great beings. Only the team leader, West Eel, had 1 pinnacle true treasure, and it was only a beginner one. In the vast universe there were not many treasures. They were usually concentrated in some powerful forces. There were too many monks and too little porridge. There were too many god-level great beings in Yunshin Cosmic Nation. If every one of them had a pinnacle true treasure, how many would that be? Tsk tisk. Dong Ming licked her red lips. This kid is not bad. He has 2 pinnacle true treasures. The team leader, West Eel, was thinking quickly. He frowned. He defeated 4th brother with 1 move, but that should be his full power. After all, he is only a peak god-level expert. It seems like he wants to show us who is the boss. Repelling and killing were 2 different things. Judging from the move Lin Feng had just performed, West Eel did not think it was a big threat. He was stronger. If he has a strong enough backer, we should have dealt him a heavy blow since we were so aggressive. Clearly, he's afraid of us. If I am not wrong, he should have found this black hole earlier than us, but he did not have enough money to pay for it. Maybe he did not want to waste it. After all, this place is about to collapse and explode. However, there should be many treasures here. Otherwise, a kid without a background would not have 2 pinnacle true treasures. Greed and ambition appeared in West Eel's eyes. As the team leader of the mercenary group, he knew what to do at the right time. Now was the time of greed. Chapter 2273. While West Eel was scheming, Lin Feng was also scheming. He could kill the South Mermaid, but he didn't do so. Firstly, it would make his opponent misjudge his strength. Secondly, he wanted to know what the West Eel mercenary group would do next. To deal with all changes by sticking to the status quo. Besides, he didn't need to take the initiative to attack. The power of 10,000 years of emptiness would slowly increase with time. With enough space energy from a wandering planet, Lin Feng didn't care about prolonging the timeline. The most important thing was to catch them all in one fell swoop. Come at me together. Lin Feng looked straight at West Eel and the other 3. If it's not enough, I can wait for you to gather everyone. His voice was indifferent and arrogant, which made the 4 of them so angry that their lungs were about to explode. How could they tolerate being looked down upon by a little kid at the peak of the god spirit level? North Shark, East Shark, and the injured South Mermaid all looked at West Eel, waiting for his decision. Do it. West Eel's face was cold. Since he had made up his mind, he wouldn't hesitate anymore. As his voice fell, a ball of cold light appeared in his hand. It was the pinnacle true treasure he was so proud of, Wild Electric Eel. It drew the power of thunder and lightning and turned it into lightning bolts that went straight for Lin Feng. It was an attack-type pinnacle true treasure. However, the grade of the pinnacle true treasure wasn't high. It was only elementary. The deputy commander, Shark North, took the lead. His tall body condensed the vigorous power of the earth. His flesh was towering, and his muscles were like steel hills. With a deep roar, he threw out a punch, as if he could collapse the sky. Third sister East Shark was like a cunning fox. Her ghostly figure landed behind North Shark, completely hidden, waiting for an opportunity to strike. The injured South Mermaid was last, looking for a good opportunity to take revenge. After fighting together for so many years, the tacit understanding of the West Eel mercenary group was beyond doubt. With their strength and excellent cooperation, they could even compete with an upper-level celestial god. Unfortunately, they met Lin Feng. Lin Feng's current combat power was comparable to an upper-level celestial god. If they were fighting outside, it might be a fierce battle, but this was his home ground. The energy in the super black hole couldn't be compared to the energy in the universe. The powerhouses of the West Eel Mercenary Corps could not unleash their full strength, but Lin Feng was not affected. Most importantly, after a series of probing, the power of the pinnacle true treasure, 10,000 years of emptiness, had already started to heat up. From 10 years to 100 years, it had now reached 1,000 years. In a battle of the same level, domains were extremely important. Shura's killing intent. Lin Feng activated the power of the Shura King armor, and a black helmet appeared. On top of it, there was a clear pattern that looked like a strange letter. It shone with a clear golden light, and its power suddenly increased dramatically. What? The members of the West Eel Mercenary Corps were a little confused. If 2 pinnacle true treasures were not enough, there was still a third. However, there was no time for them to be shocked. Lin Feng's attack had already arrived and was heading straight for Shark North. Hating tore through space as the power of the myriad obscuring heavenly blade erupted. Lin Feng's eyes were like lightning as his battle intent surged. You want to compete with me in terms of strength? Shark North was a little stunned, but he was secretly delighted. Previously, he was a little worried because he was not good at dealing with agile warriors. However, he did not expect his opponent to be so stupid as to compete with him in terms of strength. He had a special bloodline and was known for his physical strength. Close combat was his forte. Moreover, he had the support of his big brother, West Eel, behind him. Shark North was confident even against an upper-level celestial god, let alone a little guy who was still wet behind the ears. You're courting death. Shark North's eyes lit up as he threw a pair of iron fists at Lin Feng. His gray armor was indestructible, and his bloodline was fully unleashed. However, the moment his fists touched Lin Feng's hating, Shark North's expression changed drastically. Impossible! A terrifying power came crashing down. It was unstoppable. Shark North felt as if his body was about to explode as the terrifying power came crashing down on him. He felt a sharp pain in his heart. He tried his best to defend, but everything seemed to be destroyed in an instant. His armor, his strength, and his confidence. Boom! Lin Feng fully unleashed his combat power as a celestial god descended. After refining and fusing with a wandering planet, the power of the perfect chaotic body was fully displayed at this moment. A middle-level celestial god, whose body was not even as strong as a Hating, could not block it. Chi! A sharp light came from under Shark North's feet. It was the third sister, Dong Ming, who was making use of every opportunity to attack. Her method was very despicable. Many great warriors had been killed by this wasp-tail needle. However, she had miscalculated this time. What's going on? Dong Ming felt her whole body tremble. The space around her suddenly changed, and the scene in front of her suddenly spun as if she was in a strange world. The target in front of her suddenly disappeared. 10,000 years had passed. The power of the domain, mixed with the power of space, was all under Lin Feng's control. What? West Eel, who was controlling the pinnacle true treasure to attack, was shocked because the target of the wild electric drawing eel had suddenly changed to the third sister, Dong Ming. His face turned pale, and West Eel quickly changed the direction of his attack. Damn it! It's that pinnacle true treasure domain. The experienced West Eel reacted instantly. He clenched his teeth in anger. He had lost his footing, and he had been ambushed by a little guy. Just as he changed the direction of his pinnacle true treasure, an extremely strong aura suddenly descended, and the surrounding space energy instantly surged. *T. West Eel was furious. He hurriedly blocked and retreated. He knew where the attack came from, but he did not expect an inconspicuous pinnacle god to have such skillful attacking skills. Not only did he borrow power to attack power, but he also directly attacked the root of the problem. Among the four of them, West Eel was the strongest. He had entered the threshold of an upper-level heaven god, and he could be considered the leader. If he lost, the West Eel mercenary group would collapse. "You want to kill me?" Not so easy. Although West Eel was caught off guard, he did not think that a pinnacle god could hurt him much. West Eel was very clear about the power of Lin Feng's attack on the southern shark. He could definitely block it. Boom! Lin Feng's attack exploded, and it poured out like a tide. It was light and darkness. The two separate and opposite energies miraculously fused together to form a brand new powerful force, much stronger than the space and time of the heavenly order. How can light and darkness fuse together? Impossible! West Eel was shocked. His opponent's attack power was more than 10 times stronger than when he attacked the southern shark. Previously, it was just a small test to mislead them. This was his true strength. Ah! West Eel's face was distorted, and he used all his strength to block. He was being toyed with by a little guy. However, it was too late to realize this. He was already at a disadvantage, and his strength was slightly inferior. His joint attack was destroyed, and the infinite emptiness domain enveloped the West Eel mercenary group like a huge net. The Grim Reaper opened his arms and hugged them completely. "It's too late." Lin Feng's voice rang out as Hei Ting opened its bloody maw. Chi! Blood splattered, and he was killed. The leader of the West Eel mercenary group, the upper-level heaven god West Eel, dead. Chapter 2274. Panic and Shock. Before Lin Feng had severely injured Shark North, they had yet to recover from their shock. Who would have thought that someone as strong as West Eel would be killed in the next moment? That was their big brother, the pillar of the West Eel mercenary group. He was an upper heavenly god who had experienced countless life-threatening battles. In terms of strength and experience, West Eel was top-notch. However, today, he had led the entire West Eel mercenary group to encircle a brat who was still wet behind the ears. West Eel had not known what had happened until his death. They had clearly passed the most difficult stage, which was entering the black hole. No! Behind West Eel was the already injured Shark South. He had personally witnessed the death of the big brother he admired the most. His heart was filled with extreme shock and endless fear. At this moment, Lin Feng in front of him was as terrifying as the Grim Reaper. Chi! Lin Feng did not show any mercy as he swung his saber down. Facing the Shark South, who was far weaker than him, he killed him like he was slaughtering a chicken. His body flashed as he went straight for Shark North and Shark East. Since the battle had begun, Lin Feng would not miss anyone. It would be troublesome to miss even one of these heavenly god experts. Rumble. 10,000 years passed as the domain bloomed. Lin Feng stood above with a calm expression. Hei Ting was excited after drinking blood and could not calm down for a long time. Because this time, he had killed a heavenly god expert and drank the essence blood of a heavenly god expert. It was undoubtedly a great tonic for Hei Ting. 1 against 4, a complete victory. My physical body is indeed different from before. The battle to his heart's content made Lin Feng more aware of his own strength. After refining the crystal core and fusing with the wandering planet, his physical body had turned into a universe of chaos. It was even stronger than special life forms. Today's battle was enough to prove that. My true combat strength should be slightly higher than the leader of the West Eel mercenary group. However, I'm not that much stronger. Lin Feng already had a plan in mind after this battle. The reason why he could defeat West Eel so easily was because of the favorable conditions. West Eel was not good at close combat, and he was trapped in a domain. Not only did his teammates not provide him with any help, but they also distracted him, so he was defeated very quickly. As for the other 3 heavenly deities, they were merely lower and middle heavenly deities. Speaking of which, Are the heavenly god powerhouses of Yun Xian Cosmic Nation so poor? Lin Feng checked the belongings of West Eel and the others. They only had a beginner pinnacle true treasure. They were so poor that it was pathetic. They were even weaker than the experts of the god-fallen world. However, the West Eel mercenary group is only a 3-star mercenary group. It's not the best in Yunshin Cosmic Nation. Lin Feng flipped through West Eel's notes and the mercenary group's logo. He had some understanding of the mercenary groups in Yun Xin Cosmic Nation. With a heavenly god powerhouse, one could form a mercenary group. However, it would only be the most ordinary 1-star mercenary group. An upper heavenly deity like West Eel actually already possessed a certain standard of a 4-star mercenary group. However, he had not completed enough missions, and the number of people in his mercenary group was also insufficient. Thus, he was only a 3-star mercenary group. The best are the 5-star mercenary group. However, the strongest is the only 6-star mercenary group. Lin Feng looked at the ranking of the mercenary group. At the top was the God Extermination Mercenary Group, the only 6-star mercenary group in Yun Xin Cosmic Nation. What an arrogant name! Lin Feng chuckled. However, he did have the confidence to do so. With his current strength, he might not even be able to deal with a 4-star mercenary group, much less the only 6-star mercenary group in Yun Xin Cosmic Nation. The West Eel mercenary group, including West Eel, only has 4 members. Furthermore, they have always acted alone. They should not have any accomplices. Lin Feng quickly flipped through the information. He understood quite a lot about the West Eel mercenary group, including the previous probing and their reactions. He was almost certain. After all, there were not many experts who dared to enter the ownerless black hole forcefully. The West Eel mercenary group dared to take the risk not only because they were mercenaries and were good at taking risks. More importantly, they would not gain any benefits if they stayed outside. It seems that many experts have gathered outside. Lin Feng became alert. Are they all waiting for the black hole chaotic origin heart? Let's wait patiently. Lin Feng chuckled before returning to the wandering planet. Nothing had changed on the wandering planet. It was just that the spatial energy was less than 1% of normal. Only the circulation of the wandering planet could release enough energy to sustain life. It wouldn't have much of an impact on his life. But to the experts on the wandering planet, their cultivation would be shackled. Actually, it's good too. They do not have to rely so much on their environment and talent. They can improve their realm and other abilities. Misfortune might be a blessing in disguise. Most of the powerful experts on the wandering planet were unique life forms and experts with powerful bloodlines. They relied too much on their environment to grow and did not dig out their potential. Actually, many of them had great potential. For instance, the Diamond Empress and Hun Ho. As for the humans on the wandering planet, they had strong comprehension abilities and did not need to worry. I'll just treat it as hibernation for a while. Lin Feng chuckled. It was just a few tens of thousands of years or at most 100,000 years. To the wandering planet which had a lifespan of hundreds of millions, it was nothing. There was no need for him to think too much about what he thought was right. Furthermore, he believed that all his efforts would not go to waste. It might not be now, but there would definitely be rewards in the future. He waited patiently. Lin Feng stayed on the wandering planet temporarily just in case. After all, since the West Eel mercenary group dared to enter, it was highly likely that there were other mercenary groups. But after waiting for a long time and not seeing any abnormalities in the Milky Way, Lin Feng felt relieved. It seems that it is just an exception. That's normal too. After all, the black hole is usually located in a remote corner. Not many experts could discover it. Furthermore, experienced experts could tell that the current Milky Way super black hole is in the final stage of its decline. It might explode at any moment. Staying outside and waiting for the black hole chaotic origin heart is the best choice. He had to be careful. Lin Feng was clear that he was walking on a tightrope. Using the wandering planet to maintain the Milky Way super black hole might seem to have achieved a balance, but it was hard to guarantee that there would not be any unforeseen events. Especially when the wandering planet was damaged, the balance would be broken. Located deep within the Milky Way super black hole, the wandering planet itself was shockingly valuable. If other experts from the unveil Cosmos Nation entered and discovered it, it would be troublesome. According to what he knew, the experts outside were stronger and more numerous than the West Eel mercenary group. The sense of crisis was bursting. Fortunately, the Milky Way super black hole was about to explode. Most experts would not take the risk. Actually, I don't need to be troubled. Lin Feng thought calmly. With my current strength, it is already quite difficult for me to deal with the West Eel mercenary group. If stronger experts were to enter, even I would be powerless. Why don't I take this opportunity to enter the unveil Cosmos Nation while waiting for the black hole chaotic origin heart? I should take the initiative. Chapter 2275. Earth, Pacific Ocean. Today's Earth had long been unified by Huaxia. Because of Lin Feng's strength and supreme status in the Milky Way territory, the Huaxia race had occupied the absolute ruling position in the Earth's territory. All of Earth's treasures naturally belonged to Huaxia. The Bermuda Triangle. Lin Feng looked down. It was originally one of the 7 great sacred sites of Earth, and ranked 3rd. Now, there were no secrets about it. Treasure of the Heavenly Tao. Furthermore, it's a space-type Heavenly Tao treasure. Compared to other sacred sites, such as the Temple of Goddess Artemis, the Egyptian pyramids, the Temple of Shiva, and the Bermuda Triangle, it was obviously superior. Lin Feng's spatial ability was extremely outstanding, and the black vortex in his body was extremely excited. If a worker wants to do his job well, he must first sharpen his tools. Lin Feng was prepared to follow 8th senior brother and enter unveil Cosmic Nation, so he was fully prepared. That day, when 8th senior brother entered, he also took a treasure. However, it was only a pinnacle true treasure, because he was not strong enough. Just like now, he still couldn't take away the Great Wall of Chaos. He couldn't even take away the Olympian Temple of Zeus, which was a true treasure of the universe, because it was also a level higher than his own strength. I wonder what grade it is. Normally, Heavenly Tao supreme treasures require one to reach the level of Heavenly God in order to fuse with them. I'm still a bit lacking, but my bloodline is stronger. My physical body and soul are stronger than ordinary heavenly gods, and I'm skilled in the Tao of space. There shouldn't be a problem. Whoosh! Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he released his power. The surrounding domain was set up, isolating everything. Otherwise, this kind of power would be enough to cause great chaos on Earth. The Bermuda Triangle seemed to have also sensed the appearance of a powerful spatial force. The entire Pacific Ocean surged, and the phenomenon became violent. Looks like it's the same as the Great Wall. It has already developed spiritual awareness. Lin Feng's expression was calm. It was within his expectations. A treasure of the Way of the Heavens had been without an owner for a long time. Over time, it would develop its own will and spiritual consciousness. However, it might not be like the Ho, which was most likely the most ordinary spiritual consciousness. That's even better. Since it can give birth to spiritual awareness, it means that its grade shouldn't be low. Lin Feng roared. In a split second, the power of 10,000 years of emptiness increased explosively, directly crushing down from the sky, the giant venomous hornless beast smashing down. Although the grade was not as good as the Bermuda Triangle, there was a huge gap between the energy released and the controller. Instinctive spiritual sense could only control the tip of the iceberg of the Bermuda Triangle. It was impossible to stop the powerful energy of the space domain. Rumble, the entire Pacific Ocean seemed to be boiling. Lin Feng suppressed the Bermuda Triangle and directly merged with it. Pung! His head shook, and something in his sea of consciousness seemed to be resisting. Poochie! In an instant, he was reduced to ashes. With the strength of Lin Feng's soul, it was easy for him to kill a treasure spirit that only had instinctive spiritual consciousness, even if it was a spiritual consciousness born from a heavenly Tao treasure. There was no need to keep this kind of aggressive self-awareness. When the time came, it would be a hindrance in battle. Without the resistance of his spiritual sense, Lin Feng quickly completed the fusion. With a sound, his soul let out a joyous cry. The sixth-stage black vortex was even more excited. It spun at a rapid speed and countless information poured into his mind. Lin Feng sat in the void with his eyes closed. It was huge. No wonder it's a heavenly Tao treasure. Lin Feng thought to himself. It was stronger than any of his pinnacle true treasures. This was not a beginner heavenly Tao treasure, but a mid-level one. It was worth a lot. With the scarcity of treasures in Yunxin Cosmic Nation, if this Bermuda Triangle was sold, it would be the highest price. Even peak heavenly gods would come out to fight for it. Lin Feng smiled. However, he did not plan to sell it for the time being. After all, it was also a great help to him now. It was not a domain type, but a main attack type with a secondary support type. Support ability, fixed point space teleportation. This is the simplest, but it's the most practical. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. In the same spaceplane, he could create fixed space coordinates and teleport through space ripples. For example, if he set space coordinates on a wandering planet, he could teleport directly from Earth to the wandering planet. The so-called same spaceplane referred to a space similar to a black hole. Of course, if he wanted to teleport out of the black hole, he could not do it, or he could not do it with his current strength. Main attack ability, Triangle Tomb. Space is torn into a spiral triangle, increasing the attack power by several times. The single target attack power is extremely strong. This was not bad. Especially for him now, he had the stage 6 limit black vortex, but he could not use its skills. The Bermuda Triangle in front of him could make up for it. The attack power of a heavenly Tao treasure was obvious. Ultimate ability, Destruction of the Bermuda Triangle. Lin Feng secretly sighed. This power was terrifying. 100 triangular tombs were used at the same time. Although the control was not as strong as the main attack, the power of a single triangular tomb was quite terrifying in a group battle. In a one-on-one battle, if he could completely control the triangular tombs, the power was even more unimaginable. However, the ultimate ability of a heavenly Tao treasure was too difficult to master. To use the destruction of the Bermuda Triangle, he first had to master the corresponding space heavenly Tao secret technique. Secondly, he needed to have extremely strong control, and most importantly, he had to have the huge space energy to use 100 triangular tombs at the same time. The ultimate ability was strong, far exceeding the main attack, but it also required 100-fold improvement. It's very suitable for me. Lin Feng was very satisfied. Whether it was the control or the amount of space required, he met all the requirement. Because he had a wandering planet and was good at souls, it was easy for him to multitask control. To him, the most difficult thing was to master the corresponding space heavenly Tao secret technique. The ultimate space heavenly Tao secret technique is the advancement of the second ability. There's no need to rush. Take it step by step. First, cultivate the triangle tomb, master the heavenly Tao secret technique, and then cultivate the ultimate ability. It will be twice the result with half the effort. Lin Feng nodded. In fact, a heavenly Tao treasure had its own benefit. It could assist in the cultivation of a heavenly Tao secret technique. A heavenly Tao secret technique was very important to a god-level expert. It was the combination of 100,000 origins, using the law all as the foundation to create a powerful heavenly Tao secret technique. Not only could it increase one's combat power, but it was also a kind of mastery of the heavenly Tao law. A heavenly Tao treasure was an extension of the heavenly Tao secret technique. Therefore, when the two were combined, using a heavenly Tao treasure would help in the comprehension of the heavenly Tao secret technique. It's easy to go from God to heaven God, and it's not too difficult to go from heaven God to God Master. However, it's difficult for a God Master expert to become a supremacy. One of the foundations is the comprehension of the heavenly Tao law. Regardless of whether one becomes a time supremacy, space supremacy, one thought supremacy, or Vajra supremacy, one must comprehend the heavenly Tao law to at least level 9. After reading the myriad heaven Tao, Lin Feng knew very well how to surpass the limit and become a supremacy. Chapter 2276. Wandering Planet, 800 years later. Done. Lin Feng stood at the top of the space crystal mountain, feeling the rich space energy and smiled. Although the space energy in other areas of the wandering planet was thin, the space energy here still reached the limit of the wandering planet. It was easy to supply a small area. As the total controller of the wandering planet, Lin Feng could do it. His own cultivation couldn't be neglected. I finally learned the fixed-point space teleportation. Lin Feng smiled. Although his attainment wasn't high, and his secret technique cultivation was only at the small success stage, he could at least set up 3 fixed-point space teleportation. The secret technique cultivation was divided into beginner, small success, large success, and perfection. 4 fixed-point space teleportation, one could set up 1 coordinate point, small success could set up 3, large success could set up 10, and if it reached perfection, he could set it up as he wished. Of course, this was limited by his personal ability, and there was no obstacle in terms of technique. It was easy to get started, but it was much harder to go from beginner to small success. Lin Feng couldn't just cultivate to beginner, as he could only set up 1 coordinate point, which was equivalent to not learning it at all. For fixed-point space teleportation, he needed at least 2 coordinate. However, in these 800 years, the cultivation of the 9 heavens of light and darkness improved slowly. The road to the second heaven is long. Lin Feng was now mainly cultivating the 9 heavens of light and darkness. After all, they were related by blood, and he had ancestor Wan Qian's, Wan Qian Dao, guidance. The Wan Xiang cultivation chapter explained the essence of light and darkness. The light and darkness confirmation chapter guided the cultivation of fusion. The Qian Kuan secret technique recorded the endless light and darkness of the universe, and the most precious was the light and darkness fusion secret technique created by ancestor Wan Qian. Although the secret technique had to be created by oneself, the light and darkness fusion secret technique created by ancestor Wan Qian had a high power coefficient. Even if he couldn't use all of it, as long as he could use 20% to 30%, his combat power would be quite strong. Fusion secret technique cultivation, wait until I step into the second heaven before starting. With the cultivation of the second heaven, cultivating the basic fusion secret technique of the first heaven will be twice the result with half the effort. Now, with the heavenly treasure Bermuda Triangle as the main, cultivating the offensive triangle tomb is the best way to improve my strength. The black vortex was very powerful. The natural fusion formed the singularity, and with the constant supply of energy from the wandering planet, there was no need to worry about improving his bloodline. Now, he was shackled at the limit of the 6th stage because his life level had stopped. Lin Feng was very clear. Once his life form improved, the black vortex would also take that step and reach the 7th stage. After mastering the attack type, triangular tomb, even if I don't have the geographical advantage, my battle prowess will still be comparable to the majority of upper heavenly deities. I'll even be able to put up a fight against peak heavenly deities. This was very important. This was because Lin Feng knew that in the Yunxin cosmic nation, most peak heavenly gods were already considered top-notch combat powers. There were very few almighty powerhouses. When he entered, he might encounter a lot of trouble as a newcomer. It was better to raise his strength to a relatively safe level. Moreover, he wanted to observe more to see if the energy supply between the galaxy's super black hole and the wandering planets was stable. He also wondered if there would be any other great beings after the West Eel mercenary group, as well as the Yunshin cosmic nation's great beings who were eyeing them from the outside. Outside the galaxy's super black hole. Without the West Eel mercenary group, only Demon Godly Shur and the Hull clan were left waiting. One was the top great being of the Yunshin cosmic nation, the other was a large clan. Although there were no peak heavenly god powerhouses, there were quite a number of upper heavenly god powerhouses, such as Commander Wang Qi and Deputy Commander Wang Zizhen. Especially clan leader Wang Dingquan, who was close to peak heavenly god. However, behind these two parties, there was a thin, eagle-browed man hiding in the dark waiting. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. His figure was hard to distinguish, like a peerless sword hidden in the dark. Even someone as strong as Demon Godly Shur could not detect his whereabouts. He was not from the Yunshin cosmic nation, but from the Xing Feng astral sector. Something's not right. The thin, eagle-browed man, Wu Sanjian, opened his eyes and frowned slightly. More than 1,000 years had passed. Looking at the super black hole in front of him again, there were some faint changes, but he could not pinpoint them. Although he was a lower almighty, he was still far from being a knight. He did not have the ability to easily peek into the super black hole. Maybe it's some special evolution during the decay stage. Wu Sanjian did not take it to heart. Although he was very experienced, it was his first time encountering a super black hole's explosion. He closed his eyes and continued to simulate sword techniques in his mind, fusing them with secret techniques to create a new sword move. With Wu Sanjian's strength and cultivation, he could not see the changes in the black hole. Demon Godly Shur and the Hull clan's elites could not see it either. After all, they could barely see the tip of the black hole's iceberg from the outside. Especially in the decay stage, the black hole no longer swallowed external energy. It was as if all energy had shrunk, making it even harder to observe. Unless one could directly enter to observe. But the danger level was too high. Has the West Eel mercenary group been in there for 1,000 years? The Hull clan's leader, Wang Dingquan, said in a low voice. Because of Demon Godly Shur's existence, he had come from afar to stabilize the morale of the troops. Yes, clan leader. Deputy Commander Wang Zihuan reported. Wang Dingquan lightly stroked his long beard. His icy white armor was very eye-catching, and his body emitted a cold aura. His gaze fell on Wang Qi beside him, and he slowly said, "Ah Su, what do you think?" Before he came, the one in charge of managing the overall situation was Great Commander Wang Qi, the #1 expert in the clan. There is an 80% chance that they have fallen. Great Commander Wang Qi had a solemn expression. The West Eel mercenary group took the risk and entered deep into the supermassive black hole for the sake of obtaining the treasures that might exist within. 1,000 years have passed. If there are treasures of this level, the West Eel mercenary group would have found them long ago. They would not have stayed for so long. Amen. Patriarch Wang Dingquan pondered. He did not express his opinion. Deputy Commander Wang Zihuan hesitated. Could it be that they are worried that Demon Godly Shur is outside? Hence, they did not come out even if they got the treasures? The possibility is not high. Great Commander Wang Qi said. The supermassive black hole is about to explode. Given their strength, unless they are heaven-defying or have super treasures, they would be in huge trouble the moment they enter the destruction stage. Patriarch Wang Dingquan nodded. For such a supermassive black hole to be ownerless despite entering the destruction stage, it proves that there are terrifying dangers within. Everyone nodded. Furthermore, our main target is the black hole chaotic origin heart. Furthermore, if there are treasures that could resist against the explosion of the supermassive black hole, they would appear when the time comes. There is no need for us to be so anxious now. Wait patiently. We only have one opponent. The chances of getting the treasures are huge. Patriarch Wang Dingquan roared out with bright eyes. Yes, Patriarch. The experts from the Hull clan acknowledged.